Can I get a mover and a seconder to reconvene? Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor Fisher, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East reconvene into session at 6 p.m. All those in favor? Motion carries. For reporting out, council went into closed session to discuss personal matters and identifiable individuals and propose for pending disposition of land. And can I get a mover and a seconder for staff to proceed as directed? Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Steffler. All those in favor? And motion carries. I do have something actually typed for my opening remarks, but I want to give Councillor Dalton a little bit of a heads up. Hoping I have a report from you later in the meeting about the drainage meeting that you went to.
It was an abattoir.
Oh, yours was an abattoir. I thought it was drainage. Well, we are going to the drainage one on Friday. I received a 2-page letter from Lisa, and apparently some municipalities have made some changes to the way they're handling drainage, whether it be stormwater or whether it be flood. And she's concerned about what those ramifications could be. Our drainage superintendent, the CAO, and myself have been all asked to show up in Teeswater on Tuesday afternoon. And the fact that I not only had an invite, but then had a letter after the fact, I think she really wants us to be there. So we will and find out what's going on. To the best of my knowledge, Huron East has not made any drastic changes, but some municipalities have. And I think they are concerned about if other municipalities carry along those same steps, that it could have some negative connotations going forward. We'll report back once we know what's going on. At this point, Huron East promotional video, a video celebrating the elements of what makes Huron East a great place to live, work, and play. And I would like to introduce Tara Lynn, our Economic Development Officer, for the working initiative of the video. Welcome, Tara Lynn.
I was just gonna play the video.
I don't have much to say. We received a grant last year to do this promotional video. So it's complete and we're gonna launch it to the public tomorrow. So without further ado, you can play us.
This is Huron East, a community proud of its heritage, agricultural roots, and brimming with community spirit. Located in the heart of Huron County, Huron East is situated within a half-hour's drive to Lake Huron and an hour's drive to the 401 corridor. Huron East boasts an attractive rural and small-town lifestyle. It's a place where newcomers feel the comforts of home, visitors explore like locals, and employers treat staff like family. You will find that our communities provide you with everything you need, away from the hustle and bustle of the big city. Our two largest settlement areas, Seaforth and Brussels, offer a variety of products and services. Residents and visitors enjoy the convenience of purchasing essential items, such as groceries, hardware, fuel and office supplies, and accessing both personal and business services without leaving town. We also have incredible dining options. Admire our historic downtowns and learn more about their history on a self-guided historical walking tour. Unlock the secrets of a former top-secret military base on a walk through the community of Vanastra. As a rural community, we are fortunate enough to have access to high-quality health care and emergency services. Both Brussels and Seaforth have medical clinics and fire departments. And Seaforth also has a hospital with a 24-hour emergency department. Our communities have a long history of providing for its seniors with both retirement and nursing care options. Your furry friends are in good hands as well, with access to excellent veterinary care. Huron East is a great place for growing and active families. Within our borders, we have 3 licensed child care centers, 3 elementary schools, and recreational opportunities abound. Swim year-round in our indoor aquatic center, or enjoy a refreshing cool down in our outdoor pools or splash pad. Hit the gym, join a sports team or recreation program, or play around on our championship golf course. We've got trails that are great for a leisurely stroll, cycling and snowshoeing, and we have snowmobile trails that pass through our region. If you're feeling ambitious, cycle to the beautiful shores of Lake Huron on the Goderich to Guelph Trail, or enjoy the flat terrain of the Atwood to Henfren Trail. In addition to sports and recreational activities, our friendly communities offer library services and opportunities to socialize through clubs, special interest groups, and community organizations. We offer exciting events, cozy boutique accommodations for visitors, and beautiful, unique venues for celebrating special life moments. Many entrepreneurs have found success in Huron East. We have a thriving manufacturing sector, shipping goods around the world via highway and rail. We are proud of the individuals who have worked hard to perfect their craft and the diverse products that are made here. We are also fortunate to have bountiful farmland and a nurturing environment for raising animals and growing food. The combination of a rural, small-town lifestyle, access to high-speed internet, and exceptional business support make Huron East a great place to work and do business. There is room to grow in Huron East. We invite you to visit or build a life here. Learn more about what Huron East has to offer by visiting huroneast.com.
That's a great video. You really taught or hit on a lot of key features for the municipality. How are we sharing this with the public?
So I'm going to put it on our website tomorrow, and we actually have a 30-second video as well that'll go on social media. So it's more like a teaser that'll lead people to our website to watch the full video. And then I'm actually just gonna make it live on YouTube now, so, but yeah, they'll be across our social media channels and on the website, and I've also had requests for it as well, like some of our businesses have requested it, for, employee attraction. I've had the hospital ask as well, for, recruiting doctors. So yeah, it'll be probably spread far and wide in the next week.
The quality of the video is amazing. Good editing. Did you have someone local do that or?
Yeah, actually, we used, Off the Lens, and their videographer lives in Brussels. And so they actually contracted out, Lake Effect Media, at Walton. So it's definitely a local, a local product.
Well done. Okay. Thank you. Any questions, Colin? Okay. We would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Neutral Peoples. Can I get a mover and a seconder for confirmation of the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Deputy Mayor, that the agenda for the regular meeting of council dated April 16th of 2024 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? And the motion carries. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from any member of council right now? Council Morrison.
12.5, I'm a member of one of the groups that are submitting their grant requests.
Okay, Councillor Fisher.
Same, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder for motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting? Councillor Morrison, Councillor Wilby, that the council of the municipality of Huron East approve the following council meeting minutes as circulated. That's the regular meeting of April 2nd of 2024 and the special meeting of April 3rd of 2024. Any comments or questions on those minutes? All those in favor? Motion carries. We have a consent agenda with items 8.1 through to 8.9. Is there any items on there that anybody would like to pull? Councillor Wilby.
8.4, I have a question. I always thought that they're already amalgamated, and I just wondered, is this pulling the business part of it together?
I'm not sure I can answer that completely because we actually had Andrew Williams here one night and he talked about they're already doing everything that this will accomplish, but this is officially, he's saying, just making it official with their paperwork. I've heard rumblings that some people don't like the idea, but I've never heard any reason of why they don't like the idea. And I can't really tell you the ins and out of it because I'm not a medical specialist or run any of their operations. Did you have a comment on this, Councillor Fisher?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think it was September that they had open houses at 4 hospitals. And we were unable to make the one here because it was a council night, so my wife and I went to Clinton on the next night, and well over 200 people there very upset about this. And I remember coming back to council and asking that Mr. Williams come and explain it to us, but it never happened. I think what they're doing is, the consolidation, I can't remember what the word is. So that they only have to do one set of books and one set of this and one set of that. I don't know if it impacts corporation, that's the word, incorporating or something like that. I don't know if it impacts the,
Operation.
autocracy of the 4 units going forward. That's why I wondered if he could come and speak to us about this.
We can certainly invite him back. Councillor Stuffer, you had something on the same topic?
Yeah, just to add what Councillor Fisher, there's another meeting tonight, actually up in Clinton with Dr. Belcout, the former medical officer health. Going through the Central here in Clinton Public Health Hospital Foundation, their options of being independent from the Government Health Care. So I do agree with Councillor Fisher to, bring it all in, as it will affect our Seafood Hospital Foundation as well.
People in Clinton are looking at joining Doddridge Exeter, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, since council has some concerns, would somebody like to make a motion that we contact Mr. Williams and ask him to come back and answer questions about what this means for our community hospital going forward? Moved by Councillor Fisher, second by Councillor Stefler. Any other questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Councillor Newell, you had a comment about one.
Yes, we could extract 8.1, the County of Prince Edward, with regards to accessibility for Ontarians, where there's 2.9 million people that live with a disability in Ontario. And in January 1st of 2025, there has to be compliance for accessibility. And the county here has expressed an interest in having a municipal accessibility fund created for those people that work frontline basically in our municipalities with people. And it's, I just think it would be great if we could offer our support on that initiative.
So we're not responding to the actual 8.1 from Prince Edward County. You just want to respond a letter to the county that you're in favor of what they are proposing?
Yeah, well, we could offer a letter of support as in addition to where it says therefore be it resolved that, and they said it create a municipal fund, so we could do something similar. We could create a letter along this line of that to show our support for this.
Okay. That's motion.
Mhm.
Second by Councillor Fisher. Any questions of council? All those in favor? Motion carries. At this time, the consent agenda items Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull and support 8.8, a motion from the town of Goderich about intimate partner violence. It speaks to intimate partner violence, and it's calling out on the province to pass legislation to address family and domestic violence.
Okay,
You should support that.
you're moving that.
Certainly am.
And second by Councillor Deal. All those in favor? Motion carries. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And one other through you to Brad Dietrich, Chief Building Official. Brad, I'm just interested in year over year comparison from 2023 to 2022, your numbers there. Going up, down, where is it? Like
I'm
number,
gonna say going up as far as dollar value goes, just due to inflation
right,
and what have you, as far as construction permit fees obtained or brought in.
yes, yeah.
That's more where you're aiming for.
Well, that and what the permits were for too. Like, do you see a trend towards agricultural or residential?
I'm going to say back a couple of years back, it would be more agricultural based, and the size of the buildings were quite substantial. So that had a big influence on the revenues brought in for the building department and such. Right now, it's about 50-50, or a third between commercial, residential, and agriculture. The last trend for the last year and a half or so like that, and I expect it to be the same. Things are really starting to pick up right now. I should have presented a comparison, and I will in my next report, on the comparison from last year at this point in time for permit numbers and then the value as well.
Right.
And that'll be coming up shortly.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question, how you see this year's looking for you, so,
It was really slow at the start, but it's really picking up now.
thank you.
Did I ask for a mover and a seconder?
For the whole consent.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder? Counselor Chartrand, Counselor Stepler, that the consent agenda items 8.2 and 8.3, 8.5, 8.6, 8.7, and 8.9 be received for information and approved. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Public meetings, hearings, and delegations. We have a delegation by Paul Blaney on behalf of Heritage Estates residents for a request for speed reduction on Hensel Road. Paul, welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, councilors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Blaney. I represent a number of families who live in Heritage Estates. It is now considered a 55+ community located over on Hensel Road. I only recently became aware that we're considered part of the Tucker Smith community, despite having a Seaforth postal address. However, my address has changed 4 times and I haven't moved by the post office, so what can I tell you? My wife and I have lived here almost 7 years, and we intend to be here a lot longer. We're asking that you change the speed limit to 60 kilometers per hour on Hensel Road between Front and Tile roads. Huron County website says that we're age friendly. As many of us are past age 55, myself included. I know it's hard to believe, right? Our exercise range is limited to bike riding and walking. Most of us walk our dogs on a daily basis, and many of us do have dogs. Walking on Hensel Road is to take your own life in your hands. Our landlord has owned the property for just a few months longer than my wife and I have lived there. He purchased it with the understanding that he had permission to develop the acres across from our home on 2nd Avenue, but so far has been denied permission to develop the park. But that is an argument for our MPP. Because he's been unable to put more homes onto his land, he can't develop the amenities that we would appreciate, such as a walking or biking trail within the park. We just can't afford to. There's only 35 homes there. Traffic along Hensel Road zooms. There's been a never increasing use of Hensel since we moved there, between rerouting when Main Street was resurfaced, and then again when the tractor managed to park in the front window of the real estate office on Main Street. And we've noticed it. As council, you were understandably concerned by the speed of people approaching the school buses at the edge of Seaforth. You reduced speeds to 60 along from Front Road, from Hensel Road to just before the entrance to Bridges community, and then down to 50. I believe there's still a substantial fine for passing any school bus that has its hazard lights on and its stop sign extended, but you felt the need to change the speed limit because of the children. I understand that there's also been a movement to reduce the speed further along Hensel where it enters the town of Hensel. As far as I'm aware, I think there's only one home there. There are a few businesses as well. You have to cross over Highway 4 to get into the township, into the town. All this is to point out that we currently have 35 families living in Heritage Estates. We've witnessed the death of geese, a blue heron, foxes, skunk, and others within the park area. Many of these deaths have happened because of the speed of traffic going by our property. If we're age-friendly, then do something for us old folks that want to walk on Hensel Road, because we have nowhere else to go. We respectfully request that you take appropriate action to show that Huron County is truly age-friendly. Reduce the speed limit to 60 kilometers an hour along Hensel Road between Front Roads and Tile Road. Thank you.
Is there any questions at council at this time? Two things. I would ask that we have a motion not only to receive the information, but ask the public works manager to bring back a report of the possible effects of this for council to review. Moved by Councillor Steffer, second by Councillor Chartrand. Any final questions? All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We are at 9.2, the public meeting, the 2024 final budget. We hope.
So Jason. Thanks, council. So staff have worked diligently over the last 6 months to prepare our 2024 operation and capital budgets. Next slide, please. Yes. So at our meeting back in December, when we first talked about the financial strategy, council had agreed to go with what we call the no debt deferral option. And based upon that, we deferred some public works equipment purchases, primarily being the tandem truck replacement. It fit well into that deferral plan just because it takes 15 to 18 months to actually get a truck. So that worked out well. It fit well within our proposed plan. So based upon that, we're looking at a capital levy of 2024, 4.2. Bit, a little bit higher in 25 at 4.8, and then start ramping it back down again. Those are our capital levy increases that were required. Coincidentally or not coincidentally, I didn't try to make these numbers fit 4.2. But 4.2 was the amount that actually our asset management plan recommendation said we should set as our capital levy in order to fund the infrastructure that we currently exist. Council did give council or staff approval to order the new tandem truck for delivery in 2025. So that has been ordered. And then based upon proposed operating capital budgets, we're looking at a 10.08% cap or 10.08 levy increase. So that's not a tax increase, that's the levy that we actually have to increase. So we were at 11.8% when we presented back on March 19th. Staff did work at some of their numbers to sort of try to bring that down a little bit. We did manage to bring it down almost 2%, 1.8 at least. So that's good news. Next slide, please. Some of the items that we did have in our capital plan for 2024, we did defer a few of them, just trying again to spread things out a little bit and take a little bit of the impact off of 2024. That included the roof replacements at the old Newry shop, the Newry shop old office, so that's the old gray office. The public works truck replacements, which I spoke about. There were some dressing room upgrades we were going to do at the National Recreation Center. We were going to kind of phase them into 2 phases. We just deferred them. We'll do them all as 1 phase in 2025. We did defer the C4 tennis courts, 60,000. And there was some conversation potentially maybe looking at the local trust maybe being able to provide some funding for that as well. The Brussels ball field regrading was deferred. There was a request to put HVAC in at the library in Brussels. We deferred that for another year. The Cranbrook Hall roof replacement, we also deferred that. And we also deferred some upgrades to the Seaport Fire Hall until 2025. Kind of in between, back in December when we first brought the capital plan, there's been a few other things that have come up that were a bit of a priority. Shop heaters up in the Newry shop, that's the North Public Works shop. We need a new truck for the Parks Department. And the gray fire hall needed a gear rack. They've got right now a few active firefighters that are just kind of hanging gear around in the fire hall because they don't have a storage locker. Storage rack. Next slide, please. Some of the impacts that we're having from an operational standpoint in terms of what happens when we get these types of impacts. Cost of living, obviously, we're still looking at relatively high inflation rates. We did a compensation review in 2023, and so some of those cost impacts are impacting on 2024. The council supported the implementation of our succession plan, and that was half a year was implemented in 2023. So now we're incrementing to a full implementation in 2024. Of course, insurance costs, doesn't matter who you are, where you are, insurance always seems to go up. There's certainly been some increases to health and benefit costs. Probably more so from the standpoint of the cost of the health services themselves, again, reflecting inflation. At the same time, we've had some increases in some of our revenue sources. Most of these are provincial or federal funding programs. So the Ontario Municipal OMPF, that's the partnership fund. So that funding increased roughly about $12,000. The OCIF funding, which is what's dedicated to your roads infrastructure, your linear infrastructure, that increased a little bit more, about 100,000. Gas tax revenue, that's the federal funds that come through, which again, I call it gas tax revenue. It's, we know it historically, it's called the building fund now. I think they've renamed it, and they've loosened a little bit in terms of what its use can be. But we continue to try to dedicate that to our roads and bridges. We also have our provincial aggregate resource funding. So that's the royalties we receive from all the aggregates within our municipality. So there's a slight increase in that based upon cost of living that's sort of applied by the province. Council also did not too long ago actually go through and do a full review, thanks to our Director of Community Services, did a review of all our user fees. And so we actually had some increases relative to our user fees. So all of that's being reflected in our operational budget. Next slide, please. One of the things that council committed to in 2023 that have a direct impact on 24, the Gray Fire Department ventilation fan. So that was purchased in 2023, but was to be funded in 2024. We had our compensation review for all of staff. We had full implementation of the succession plan. Additional funds to ensure all firefighters had proper PPE, bunker gear, helmets, boots. So we made sure that we weren't dealing with expired bunker gear and PPE for the fire service. So now all firefighters will have current PPE. We also incorporated the principal and interest for the SCBA financing through the trust, assuming fully paid by 2027. And you'll be speaking to that or listening to Mr. Patton when he presents his report on the award of that SCBA contract. And also our Director of Public Works also brought a report on roadside mowing, and we're moving that into an in-house service to try to provide better cost efficiencies. So those decisions are reflected in the operational budgets. Next slide, please. As council's aware, I think I've been speaking about this for about 3 years now. We had historical operational deficits in 4 areas: Brussels Cemetery, the Brussels Morris Gray Community Center, the Seaforth District Community Center, and the Huron East Fire Services. We always keep intending on trying to eliminate those deficits. We've just been carrying them forward. We're not adding to them. We make sure that we're not adding to them. So we're making sure everything's cost neutral going forward, but we still need to go back and account for those deficits at some point. Because of all the financial impacts on 24, staff will recommend we continue to defer that to hopefully we can start tackling that next year. Next slide, please. We do have a significant amount of capital funding. So $5.2 million worth of capital works being completed in 2024. They include a lot from all different cost centers. Certainly, from a roads perspective, we have Sports Drive. I won't go through each of these numbers, but I'll highlight the projects themselves. We have 2 bridge projects on Canada Company Road. We have our municipal drain assessment, so just for the council and for the public's interest. Those are the assessed portions that are assessed to the municipality, not the roads themselves. We have we don't have too much sanitary work going on, but we do have a roof replacement. Roof replacements in the sanitary system. And we have some roof replacements in the water system. So that's maintaining the buildings that are part of our water and sanitary systems. And then, of course, since we're doing Sports Drive, we're also replacing the water main on Sports Drive, so that's included in the project. Next slide, please. We, as part of that, in bringing the roadside mowing in, we are purchasing a rotary mower as part of that plan. And of course, we have the new shop, not cedars, but heaters in the new shop. In terms of parks and recreation, there's a fairly long list here. The SDC roof replacement is probably the biggest one. That's the $1.3 million project that is going to start very shortly. We have some dehumidifier replacements in the SDCC, and we've also got ceiling being refinishing. So nice to get that sort of piece all done together when we're doing the roof. In the Brussels Morris Gray Community Center, the brine pump needs to be replaced. And then we also need to replace an electrical panel up there. That's in the older portion of the building, not the new addition. The Brussels pool, a bit of work needs to be done there. The deck needs to be replaced, and we need to do some work on the pool filters as well as some of the plumbing underneath of the deck. The deck's kind of heaving and cracked and displacing, and I understand that there's a lot of plumbing issues that we've been struggling with over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. The wall lights replacement. So I mentioned to council previously, we had one light standard up at the Walton Ball Diamond had collapsed. Fortunately, nobody was around the time it collapsed. But the biggest issue is we want to make sure we put some funds out there to make sure that if those need to be replaced, they're replaced. Ultimately, the municipality, because we own the property, we're going to be liable if there's any incident or any damages occur as a result of that. So we need to protect our own liability. Now, I know Barry's working with an engineer as well as his staff to do a bit of an investigation to those standards. If we don't, in fact, actually need to replace them this year, we'll just keep the money in the reserves and we'll wait until that point in time when they need to be replaced. Okay. There's an old picnic shelter up at the Winthrop Park. The roof's falling in, it's not safe, so best recommendation from our property coordinator was to demolish that building. So I put a little bit of money in there to demolish. Seaforth Optimus Light, so the ball diamond here run by the Optimus, they are looking at replacing their lights, not the standards themselves, not the poles, but the lights themselves. And so they estimated that'd be about 50, so that's the cost. We would be splitting that 50-50 with them. We're also using some of our green energy fund there for the retrofit to the LED light. Our Director of Public Works did submit a Trillium grant application for Quebec Public Park, which is a park over in Van Astra Way. They put some activities and some playground equipment in basically an unused park at this point. It's a green space, there's no activities in it, so desperately kind of needed over in the Van Astra Way. Parks mower replacement, we actually put some dollars in last year. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough dollars. Mowing equipment's becoming quite expensive like everything else, so we had to up the dollars there. And then, of course, the parks truck replacement, so the truck we got now will pass the safety. Next slide, please. Thank you. In terms of the office, we have some office renovations and some furniture we need to do here. Most of that work's almost done now. The town hall HVAC, so it's the HVAC behind us here that works for a good part of the building. That is on its last leg, so we need to replace that. We also have to replace the roof back in behind here, so there's a lower roof that needs to be replaced. We have some asset management plan software we need to purchase, and we also have a large plan scanner. We're using some of the reserves in the building department to fund that. And of course, we have our regular computer replacements. The Economic Development Department, they applied for a grant program for wayfinding signage. That total amount there is only, 1/3 of that will be our actual cost. The rest of it will be through the various grant programs, as well as our CIP grant program, which is $20,000. And so we just recently developed and approved our community improvement plan. And so now we actually need to put some money towards it to be able to allow applications to be submitted by the business groups and the people in our community. Last but not least, the fire service. We have quite a bit of things going on there. There's the bunker gear and the PPE that was normally we were putting in around 50, 55, 60,000. We bumped it up a little bit in 2024 just to make sure we got caught up in all the expired equipment. The gear racks for both Gray and Brussels. So the new Brussels fire hall will have a new bunker room. So we need to put racks in for that. There was talk about putting an HVAC on the older portion of the building up there. It's currently not used. It certainly doesn't have an AC system in it. The lifting bags, those are the bags that fire service uses when a vehicle, to kind of prop it up if someone's trapped under a vehicle, they need to lift it. The ones we have now have been around forever. We're not 100% sure if they have an expiry date, but we're very concerned that they're at such an age that we should be replacing them. I still included the Brussels parking lot expansion. So the Brussels Fire Station had made a request to council to expand the parking lot in behind to allow parking for all volunteers when they show up for their practices and their training. We have that gray ventilation fan. We didn't allocate, now this is sort of tentative, but we do have the plan for the replacement of the fire chief vehicle, which is shared with North Huron in terms of our fire chief. We have an FCBA compressor fill station in Seaforth at 55,000. So that'll incorporate, because we're going to the higher pressure tanks, we need to actually put a new fill station. The other two stations actually have compressor systems that are capable of higher pressure systems. And then equipment decontamination, so that's the heavy duty extractor and dryer equipment for the bunker gear. To allow it, it's a health and safety issue. Next slide, please. Now we get into the nits and gritty. So we're actually looking at a residential tax rate increase of about 7.66%. In this chart here, you've seen it before. When I first gave it to you, I was looking at 2023, and I was kind of looking at service levels. And based upon the service levels that Huron East provides, we're likely should probably have a tax rate that's probably more in the middle of that pack. And you can see, based upon the 2024 tax rates, we're moving into sort of the bottom end of that range of that pack. So we're probably moving into the right place. So that's kind of a good message. I think that we're kind of getting to the right level of taxation that we need to support the services that we provide in Huron East, based upon what other services other municipalities provide an equal sense. Next slide, please. I always like to present the little pie charts, gives people a bit of a sense, so it's good. And some of these are messages that you as counselors, when you're out delivering this message or dealing with inquiries about taxes, is to make sure people understand that only half of the dollar that they give for taxes actually goes to the municipality. The rest of it goes to the school board and to the county. Next slide, please. It's also good to give the public some sense as to where their tax dollars go. So this is only the municipal portion of the tax dollar. So 50% of every tax dollar, this is where it's being distributed. You can see that transportation, no big surprise there. That's your largest cost center with 444 lane kilometers of road. That's not a surprise. Next, you're probably looking at your policing. That's the green pie shape. So policing is a fairly significant cost for a municipality. Once you start looking at some of the other ones, community service is a very significant piece. So that's all your recreations, your cemeteries, your halls, your library services, all that's in that pie, that gray pie. Then you have your fire service, the blue pie at the bottom, that's about 11%. Administering all those services, you're looking at about 13%. And then you got some small amounts for economic development, council, waste management, conservation authority, and other miscellaneous services. So that's where the municipal dollar of the taxes gets allocated. Next slide, please. This is a fairly extensive list, and I think this is something council should keep in their pocket because, you know, it's like at times you'll hear people say, I don't get much for my taxes other than I get my road plowed. Well, this is a longer list. So you get access to 3 recreation centers, including 2 arenas, an indoor pool, a fitness center, and 3 community halls. You have access to parks, playgrounds, trails, and green space that are maintained by the municipality. You have an outdoor pool up in Brussels, as well as a second partially funded pool that's operated by others here in Seaport. You got a whole bunch of sports parks. You got 7 ball diamonds, 2 athletic fields, and an outdoor sports path throughout the municipality. You've got a fire service delivered through 3 stations within the municipality. It's a very large municipality, so 3 stations. You've got the maintenance repair of 444 lane kilometers of roads. That includes surface maintenance, ditches, signage, winter maintenance, and a slew of other things that are done. Your roadside mowing is another one. I should have mentioned that one. You've got the maintenance repair of over 115 bridges and culverts in the municipality. So the Maitland River and the Osabo meander throughout our municipality. And so we've got all those water courses that we need to traverse, as well as municipal drains, various small creeks, and drainage channels. You've got sidewalk maintenance and repair. You've got stormwater management service. That includes all your storm sewers, your catch basins, your the municipal assessed portions of municipal drains. We've got municipal drain administration, so there's a cost for all that. Included in your budgets, conservation authorities. So the conservation authorities provide services to the collective municipalities in each of their watersheds, but they also levy their costs out to each municipality. And so that's covered in that municipal portion of that tax dollar. Waste collection and disposal is included in there. So it's not just the pickup at the curb, but you also got to dispose of that garbage in a landfill somewhere. You got leaf collection and disposal provided to many parts of our municipality in the fall. You've got access to landfill transfer station services throughout, each of our wards have different landfill and transfer stations. Of course, policing services, you have a daycare service, you have library facilities, street lighting, cemeteries, economic development services, bylaw enforcement, and animal control. It's a long list. And there's a lot of things being done by the municipality at a municipal level, let alone what the county does at the county level. I thought it important too, is I've heard this a few times, and I've heard it over the course of my career. Next slide, please. To make sure that people understood what's not included in the tax bill. So the odd time you get people who live in the rural part of the municipality saying, well, we don't get the same level of service because we don't get water and sewer. Water and sewer are paid by the users themselves. They are not funded by the tax dollar. Your building services are revenue neutral, so the building permit fees support and fund the building department. And then, of course, the Seaforth BI is not a tax supported system. It is taxed to the business owners within the BIA, and they are self-funded. So the general taxpayer doesn't fund the Seaforth BI. So I thought it was important just to mention that. Mr. Mayor, that's the end of my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any comments or questions from council or from anybody in the public gallery today.
Any questions from members of the public first? Really? Any questions of council? I know council's already seen this report before. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Several, if I may.
Yep.
You said you tweaked the 11.86, Brad, where is that now, please?
Sorry, 10.08.
Okay,
Almost did your 3%, Council Fisher, but I didn't quite get
uh, pretty small carrot, but thank you.
If I can jump in there for a second, when we were at the 11 point something, that was at 7.992, or we're at the 7.992 overall now?
We didn't give you a tax rate, the residential tax rate increase at the time, we just spoke strictly of the levy. We sort of gave a range, we were thinking probably a 9% residential tax rate, yes, at the time. So once we've got all our numbers and all the new assessments come in and the calculations made, we're looking at 7.66 as a residential tax rate increase.
Okay.
Okay, that's combined between the county and the school board.
So I don't understand that, you're saying 7 point something and 10 point something.
10.08 is the levy increase, that's how much we have to levy in additional dollars. So that's the total municipal amount of money we need to levy.
And 7 point something of that's coming from residential. Is that what you mean?
No, then once you take that levy amount, you add in what the county's doing as their tax increase, their levy increase. School board typically has a 0% levy increase. You blend those together based upon the proportionate shares, and it works out to a combined residential tax rate of 7.66.
Yeah, I think I got that. Okay, and then, the public works vehicle that will pass safety. So we're looking at a new vehicle for 75,000, I think.
Correct.
What did it need for safety, Mr. Mills? Was
It's
it,
a parts vehicle, but yeah, Mr. Mills probably can speak to it.
It was basically age, front brakes, back brakes, and also the steering components and the rest of the floors.
Thank you. And I was listening to this a couple times, Mr. McRoberts, the family health team. Yes, there was some comments there about, just paying interest and not touching debt or something. I listened to it twice and did not understand what it meant. Because it was my understanding that that building is paying for itself and putting money in reserves and paying down its debt, not just paying the interest on the debt.
So two factors to that. So correct me if I'm wrong, Director of Finance, but my understanding, we borrowed two streams of money. One of them was through our infrastructure funds, or so our water sewer reserves. And we also borrowed money from the Seaport Trust.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Seaport Trust, we make our regular interest and principal payment.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's built in the budget. With respect to what we pay back to ourselves, we pay the interest. And then we accumulate enough money in the reserves, and then we typically make a lump sum contribution back to pay that debt off. So it's not a principal and interest all the time. We just take whatever we build of it, but we do pay the interest to the reserve. We pay the interest back to the reserve, and then when we build up enough money in the reserve, we'll do a lump sum. I think, I can't remember the last time you paid any principal, but.
So is that at 5% fixed for 30 years, same as the trust one?
I couldn't answer that.
No, I don't have that off the top of my head, and my computer just isn't.
Okay, and any, there was a well over $1 million. I think it was $1.2 million in 08. Any idea what it's at now, please?
If you give me a few minutes, I could probably find that.
Or you can give me a shout then, or if rest of council might want to know.
We can put it in the parking lot for now.
Yeah.
Facing what's
Sorry,
starting.
okay. I think that's got it for now. Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Any other questions of council? Councilor Sharp?
At what point do we want to talk about reserves?
You can talk about it at any point in time.
Okay, so you sent us out this document of reserves. So I've got a couple questions. So if I go, for example, to Public Works, it shows that you forecasted $889,000 for 2024. And then it shows a balance of at December 31st, 2024, it shows a balance of $1,722,000. I'm assuming that's left in reserves, right?
Correct.
Now, in that 1.7, that doesn't include what we're buying or what we're capital, or what we're buying,
So,
that's above that.
right, so you're looking at the public works total.
Yes.
So some of that will include what's for roads and bridges reserve. So that's the OCIF money, the gas tax. I think aggregates listed separate, and those are all listed there.
So what my question is that 1.7 million,
Yep.
okay? Have we spent that in 2024?
No, that's what's left in the balance.
So that's left after all the budget items that we gave Public Works.
Correct.
So there's $1.7 million in reserves there right now,
But that money is dedicated to roads and bridges.
but not in 2024.
No, but the reserve itself has to be spent on roads and bridges because it's
Exactly.
a source of funding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's $1.7 million there.
Yeah, you've got a very good, healthy road and bridge reserve. It's your other reserves that are struggling.
So who made the rule? Is it a provincial rule? Who made the rule that that money can only be used for bridges? That's a rule of council, a bylaw of council, a policy of council?
The Director of Finance probably can speak to it, but my understanding is those are all based upon your gas tax.
We get the gas tax, I understand
At
that.
the time, that was based upon, it had to be roads and bridges. And then your OCIF, which you didn't use all your OCIF money that came to the province, which is linear infrastructure roads. It was put into that reserve, so.
Well, yeah, I didn't get my question answered. Is there an actual rule that says you have to spend it,
The funding stream that dictates what you spend that on, yes. There's a provincial-
but not for the gas tax portion of it, only for the,
There was for the gas tax.
So not now.
Not now. New funding that's coming through, we've got a little bit more flexibility, but most of those dollars were traded based upon the old gas tax.
so for example, I understand both the other funds.
Yeah.
So there's $1.4 million in gas tax here. Reserve, right?
Right.
So we don't have to spend all that on roads if we don't have to.
There are specific requirements, and I have to go look them up, and they have broadened the requirements, is it?
I guess it's worthwhile looking into because when we asked at the last budget meeting, could we find 300,000 or 400,000 somewhere to lower the taxes? I mean, when there's $1 million, almost $1.5 million sitting in there.
But I think it's dedicated for future roads.
You have to look in concert. You have to look at your forecast when you start looking at your.
When you're looking out 10 years, 5 years, whatever.
Yeah, like you're gonna have to
But
start.
we're also putting reserves in every year.
Not right now, you're not in roads, right? Because you had a fairly healthy reserve, so your road projects, you're kind of holding off, putting more money into your road reserve to try to get some of your other reserves funded. But you will eventually by 2030, hang on a second, I gotta make sure I got this right. Second page. Yeah, well, actually, 2025, you gotta start ramping it up so that you can actually cover all the costs of your projects going forward.
So in community services, after we've already budgeted all the money for the roof and C4 and all the rest of that stuff
Correct?
for 2024. We budgeted all that money for 2024, and at the end of 2024, there's still 600,000 left in there, right?
Sorry. You're talking about the community service one?
Community service, yeah.
Yeah, it's 602,000, but you have to remember that, some of that's for the medical centers. And there's, restricted reserves for the Swim for Kids. And some donations we received for specific capital. Brussels Homecoming is untouchable. The building fund expansion is specifically, oh, that's at 0 at the end of the year, and the parkland has restrictions. The only one at the top is a general recreation one with the 129,000.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason.
So when you look at the bottom line is, and I know that a lot of it, especially in the sewer and water, we got $12 million in reserves
How much should we take it up?
at the end of 2024. Thanks for doing the chart.
And, you know, almost 9 million of that was all based on utility reserves.
I can answer Bob's question. Let me go back to that. So we did borrow, actually, I know there was discussion to borrow from the utilities. It never was borrowed from utilities. It was borrowed from working capital. And, right. Now, it's at an ending balance at the end of 2023 should be 561,000 or 562,000 for that loan.
Good, thank you. Okay, thank you.
I'm coming back to you, Bob, but there's
Thank you.
other people. Councilor Stepler.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you. That's a lot of work and, goes into putting together a $20 million budget. So thank you. My question's on the fire administration. Just on the reserves, we're putting away approximately 300,000 a year. But I don't see any real out to 2020, any capital or any real large expenditures or planning for administration renovation, expansion.
That is your total fire reserve contribution, so that's to cover all the departments. So when you see it coming out, you'll see it coming out in the departments. So if you go back and look at each department, you will not see reserve contributions for each department.
Right.
So we're consolidating the contribution into one, into fire administration. You'll see the same in recreation. It's coming through community services. So.
Which is good because
Yeah.
we're here in East, that makes
Right,
total
so the
practical
reserve
sense.
contributions are coming through.
So if we're sitting in a reserve position, 369, 1.8, 2.6 million, but we really don't have anything planned to spend it on because our budget goes out to 28. Am I reading that correctly?
Probably best to look at the larger sheet
Yeah.
here to get a sense.
So ours goes out to 2028 though, right?
Yeah.
Like I got the other ones in here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I guess the question-
so we're putting the reserves in, but for the most part, until we start building up some of these money, like this year, we're actually running a slight little bit of a deficit.
Correct.
In 2024 on the capital, we'll catch it up, in 2025. Our reserve balance in 2025 will be about 170,000 fire. So you've got a few big fire trucks that are gonna be in that $500,000 to $750,000 coming up.
Right, no, so that makes sense. I just don't see them in the vehicles under 802 all for any purchases.
Yeah, I think that's probably not in the.
Till 2020. So that goes back to my last point of, are we in a position, CAO Brad, to reduce our net reserves by, let's say, 10 to 15%? What would that do to our tax rate? If let's just say we took 20% off our projected reserves, it costs more tomorrow, potentially.
Yeah.
But what would that do to
So
our,
if you took 10% off today, you're gonna pay 20% more or something.
if everything's relative?
Yeah. But for the most part, you don't have a lot of money to spare right now. Fire, you got a deficit, recreation, I think you're using it all.
Okay.
So there's two big heavy hitters, quite frankly. You deferred already public works, so most of their stuff's being deferred to the next year.
Okay.
Yeah, you kind of did that already with public works in that sense. You tried to reduce what we're spending there, so you didn't get the tax hit.
So just for clarity for the public, we're starting at a zero, trying to build our reserves, so we got a healthier tomorrow.
Yeah, you had, the only reserve you had was the roads and bridges reserve. A good one, but somewhat committed to just roads and bridges, and you had no other funds available in reserves for all your other assets.
And that still leaves us below the median of neither 9 or 8 municipalities
Yeah, it actually,
for services per
Yeah.
capita.
Exactly, that's a good way to look at it.
Thanks, Stacy. Thanks, Brian.
It's not the only time that exact question's been raised. I can't remember exactly when it was. There'll be other council members here that did, but at one time we said we were gonna put $150,000 away every year just for fire. Because we had already figured that that's what it was gonna take just for the trucks. We weren't even looking at bunker gears or anything else. And the very next year, now we need to cut that out and keep the budget down, and it just never happened. It was a good idea, but we just didn't follow through because we were trying to keep the tax as low as possible, which kind of helped get us to where we are right now, so. The downside back then was we didn't have a 5-year forecast. Now that we do, although it's still not great this year or next year, so we can start to see that the funds are really starting to bring things more into line to regular yearly increases after that. And hopefully then the public will see a consistent tax increase year after year that's acceptable. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I finally remembered this one after 3 tries. Thank you. Mr. McRoberts, last year you said you would put a line in the budget for Lions Park and Pool instead of having them come and ask for grants, and it's not in the budget anywhere. They're asking for a grant again this year. What happened to that, please?
I think that was council saying we should consider and look at our grant policy as to how we should fund them. I don't think a decision was made, Councillor Fisher. I think,
No, it wasn't a decision. It was a comment that it would be in the budget.
no, I wouldn't have said that. I mean, I think you guys have to give us what your grant policy would be. We did have conversations. Lisa and I did go out and have conversations with the different groups about what would it look like if council was to consider sort of providing some more stabilized funding as part of a budget process. You know, we kind of got mixed responses to that. And we ultimately didn't bring back a report to council. We just sort of ran out of time in terms of the budget process. We can continue to look at that. Certainly we can look at that for a recommendation of next year, but we need to apply it on a bit of a universal basis and base it upon what your policy will be. For the most part, your policy right now states that any other entity, you basically split capital cost 50-50. And for the most part, that's how staff have been applying it to all the other, I guess, various service clubs, community groups, that run our different, community halls, ball fields. Am I missing any? Yeah. And that's what the capital plan reflects right now. It reflects a 50% contribution by those community groups for any capital improvements to their projects.
That's parkland you're talking about, right?
Not necessarily parkland. But that would be for sports fields, whatever is being run by whatever those community groups would be. Seaforth Optimus, Cranbrook Hall, the Ethel Hall, the Walton Hall, all of those ball diamonds that are run by local community groups. That's how we've applied it. Now, if council wants to change that direction, we could certainly look at something, but it is complex. It's not just simply say, let's give, no disrespect to Lions. You can't just say, let's give the Lions a line in the budget and then ignore everybody else. Right? You gotta kind of be equitable in terms of how it's applied. Because those other service groups do provide a service to the municipality that if they weren't providing it, potentially the municipality would be fully funding it. And I get that.
Yeah, Lisa's up on the Lions Park this year, right? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chartrand.
We had a little bit more than just comments about this. We talked in detail last year, about this item. Where we were comparing how much it would cost, how much it costs to run the pool in Brussels.
Yeah.
Versus how much it costs to run the pool in Seaford.
Yeah.
And the total Brussels pool is all covered under the levy of the recreation there, right?
Yeah.
And we distinctly said we were gonna look at putting it as a line item because,
Thank you.
yeah, it may be the service group is running that pool for us because municipality owns that land.
Yeah.
They literally run it, collect the money. I mean, when you look at their budget, we'll get into this later on, when we get into grants. But I mean, the 15.5 that we gave them last year in a grant is nowhere near what it costs to run that park.
If I'm misunderstanding, I apologize, but I believe the conversation we had about looking at the different dollar amounts was to determine whether we were gonna give them 10,000 or 15,000 in the grant.
We decided to go from the 15.5 last year, but we also said, going forward, why should that pool be part of the program when we don't do that for the pool in Brussels. We own that pool in Seaford. We own that pool in Brussels. We own them both.
We own all, everything, but at
Right.
the end of the day.
But I mean, between what they,
It's no different than the Optimist, though. We don't run a ballpark for us in the dog park. We do the maintenance and repair there. We don't have a line item in our.
we're not talking about maintenance repair, we're talking about running the pool. Maintenance on the pool, getting your workers, paying the wages. I mean, they paid out $46,000 in wages last year. And then we only gave 15.5. I mean, but they generate revenue, but I do believe that that pool and how it's run should be a line item in the budget, no different than a levy thing that we have for the pool in Brussels.
So council can absolutely give direction if they want to change the way it is. And I may be incorrect, but I do believe when that issue was raised last year, and I don't disagree with the figures or how the conversation went, but I think there was some valid comments, and I didn't even understand how the entire Lions Club worked in Brussels. But my understanding was, yeah, we actually paid for the pool, but they actually provided a bunch of grants to get better usage out of the pool, whether it be for programs or this or that. And it was kind of a different scenario in what they put their funding towards. So I don't have any problem if council wants to see it as a line item on the budget. But I would suggest that we're still in budget talks here at the moment, but we should ask after we're done with the budget for a report asking the differences between them so that council can decide how they want to fund all of them and, as stated, be equitable for all the groups out there.
So if you look at the year-end sheet, and if the municipality was running that park, not the Lions group, right? You're managing roughly $100,000 in a budget here. So that would end up being a line item in our budget.
I absolutely accept the fact that, and I think everybody sitting around this table understands that if it wasn't for the service groups working with us, that we may not be able to afford to supply some of these services. Absolutely. The other side of it is that, as you said, they paid out a lot in wages, but they also collected whatever revenue for the service.
They did. It's all.
So there's more to it than just saying it would cost us $100,000 more, because it may not be.
We never did get an actual report back saying it costs this much to run the Brussels pool, costs this much to run the Seafoam pool. And yeah, service groups pay for swimming lessons. They do that here too. They fundraise all kinds of money to help pay their bills here at the park. No different. Except all we do from the municipality is give $15,000.
Councilor McGrath?
I don't believe we own that park. Lions Park here.
We do.
I cannot get into that one because I don't know.
Well, I know the Lions, when it was Tucker Smith, the Lions came to us to put the park in the municipality's name. And next year they took it right back out because they got a tax that happened. You're doing. So I could be correct in that, but however, I don't disagree with the fact that a pool, it's in our area, it's used by all our residents, so budget wise, where the line is in the budget doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But cost comparison is cheaper.
So if council wants to do something different going forward, absolutely. At this point, like, and we can put a motion to staff of what direction we want to give. But at this point, can we carry on with the budget itself? Are there any other questions on the presentation that we had?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Brad. Brad, you and I have had this discussion a number of times about the fire chief's vehicle being at $99,000, because I think you want to go all electric and.
That was the conversation we had with North Huron.
Right.
To be honest, I've not had a different conversation with them. I think It all really depends on where we go, it's better cheap ultimately, for sure, so if you don't put money into that, well, that money goes to big reserves.
And I guess my argument still is, you know, if you wanna go green vital, go hybrid for half that cost.
Yeah.
You know, so
So
whether it's
certainly can explore.
savings of, to them or not. My follow-up question is to, you as well, about the pool deck in Brussels at the pool.
Yeah.
Is that gonna be done off-season?
We wouldn't certainly do it during the,
Right.
because we don't want to jeopardize the use of the pool. for the
But
summer.
it's still usable, that's what I was getting at.
I think we can get through the summer, I'm looking at Lisa. There. I think we'll get through the summer, but we certainly want to schedule it for either before we start the summer, obviously, but it's getting pretty narrow now. Certainly the fall.
My follow-up then, has there been any discussions with the Brussels Lions as far as helping support that or no?
We did have a conversation with them back when we met, that was a while ago. It would have been in the spring after the last budget, we did meet with the Brussels Lions and talk a little bit about that. Not so much about whether they would fund it.
Right.
I think their funding's always been focused on subsidizing the rates.
Certainly of later years, that's right. I know, but earlier on, they were quite involved in some capital stuff,
So
so.
absolutely where you're correct.
And as long as they're kind of kept in the loop with this, that's what's gonna happen here with it.
I think they're happy to see that we're actually putting some money aside to get it fixed.
Counselor Stepler.
Yeah, just a final thing too. We're almost halfway through April here. Is there any way, and I know we ask every year, to get these numbers sooner? As a counselor, I had it takes a lot of work. You had 6 months, you said to do it 4 months. I had, we had, a presentation, 3 hours and a 20-minute conversation on the presentation. And then basically, we have to make a decision, which is fair. We do have to make a decision right away. But if I had that information in January, February, it'd be a lot better for us to be able to talk to Paul before all the tenders and everything are going out on jobs we haven't even really had the time. It's just understanding the staffing and everything we talked about, but it would be just really appreciative to have some of that information earlier.
Our goal always is to try and do it earlier. Just game staffing issues keep creating a challenge for us. It creates that difficulty in trying to get forward. We've done this budget a little bit differently. It's actually built right into the module this time, so moving forward, we should staff thinks I'm joking, but I always say once the budget's approved, it's time to start working on the next one.
That's right.
I'm not kidding.
That's right.
That's right. We really gotta start moving. I mean, there's really no time to rest. Start getting all your projects going and start working on next year's budget, because that's really what it's about.
Thank you.
Any other questions of council? Deputy Mayor?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, I look at council's honorariums, and I see how much it's climbing. I really think we should freeze ours for the rest of our term. That's just a comment.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nothing with that.
Go ahead,
That's
Stacy.
just not council, that's also. That's all the honorariums, right?
That's also honorariums for your citizen members that
Yeah,
are
that's
on
not
your
just
committees, so such as their mileage. They also get an attendance rate for being at, the meetings as well. They usually submit near year end, so they would get the same committee price as what counselors do, plus mileage at the standard CRA rate. We don't have as many citizen members as we had in the past.
Right.
I think we can do more, but that does include those numbers as well.
I just wondered how that would.
Yeah.
How that breaks out.
And then historically, those were in the departments, but we've now consolidated all of the county committee stuff into council. So in prior years, so that's a little bit of why there's a jump.
Yeah, some of the honorariums would have been billed within each of the rec centers, but since we don't do by rec center anymore, we consolidated it all. So that's why you probably see a bit of a big bump.
Well, actually, the bump looks pretty consistent. It's about 5,000 a year from now until the end of the projected schedule.
But if you look at 2023 and compare to 2024, it might seem a little bit more than 5,000.
And those be the projected cost of living increases that also get to the honorariums.
So I guess that really is only about 2 or 2.5% increase, isn't it?
That's all it is,
Yeah, okay.
cost of living.
Anything else? Councilor Fisher?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To follow up with Councilor, or Deputy Mayor McClellan had to say, I was gonna bring this up during councilor issues, that we, maybe sit down and visit our, honorariums and such for, councilors, in the near future. And come up with a plan/program for the rest of this term and going forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, we can bring that forward as a motion to look at what we want to do, for the rest of this term.
I would be willing to make that motion, Mr. Mayor, when the time comes.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I got two things, okay, any other questions of council at this time? Okay, seeing none. We don't have a motion that actually says, what is that?
When we get down to the report, because the report's a separate piece of the public meeting, so that's where the motion to accept the budget would be coming into play when we get to the staff report.
Okay, thank you very much. Then at this point, we will go to planning, consent application C 11/2024 and C 12 of 2024. Welcome, Jay.
So this is the presentation for consent application C 11 and C 12 2024. It applies to 436 and 434 Turnberry Street in Brussels. And I believe the applicant and the applicant are today. Next slide. So just an aerial of the subject property here. Left is slightly more zoomed out, so we're located in downtown Brussels here. The lands proposed to be severed are immediately adjacent to the Brussels four-wing farm. The image on the right there shows the proposed severed and retained lands associated with each severance. So C11 severed is on the top left, and then the retained beside that on the right, and then C12 below that. So the purpose of the applications are to create a new lot to be used for a parking lot for the Brussels four-wing farm. There's two PIN numbers that apply to the subject lands, so that's why there's two separate applications. The severed parcels from the two applications are proposed to merge into one parcel. And the area retained from C11 is approximately 330 square meters and contains a commercial building fronting on Turnberry Street. The retained area with C12 is approximately 460 square meters and also contains a commercial building fronting on Turnberry Street as well. Next slide, please. So this sketch shows the final result of the end parking lot plan after the two severed parcels merge. In effect, it'll create a 1,300 square meter parcel, and the new parking lot will provide additional parking or parking in addition to the Four Winds lands needed to meet the parking requirements for the event building there. The retained parcels will also maintain adequate parking spaces for the commercial buildings, as well as tenants in those buildings. And the application proposes to create several easements over these severed lands for access and parking to the rear of the retained buildings on Turnberry, as well as easements for access are proposed for the neighboring lots to the south and north of the severed land. So it's shown up as lot 9 and 10 on that sketch there, which will provide legal means of access from Elizabeth Street for both of those properties as well. And then a blanket easement is proposed for municipal services that exist under the subject lands in favor of the municipality, as well as a blanket easement for stormwater drainage over the severed lands in favor of the retained lands. And these easements are all included as a condition of the consent approval. Next slide, please. So it's also worth noting here that there is a 4-foot strip of orphaned land with multiple historic ownerships that separates the Four Winds land from the new severed parcel. The applicant's lawyers are working to address this strip of land, but until that time, the severed parcel is proposed to remain as a separate lot, but tied to the Four Winds land through a site-specific site plan agreement, which will bind the two properties until they can be merged into one parcel. Next slide, please. So the property is designated for commercial and zoned for commercial in the zoning bylaw. A parking lot, either as the main or accessory use, is permitted within this zone. And the proposed severance is required to address the parking requirements of the Four Winds facility and to help identify the appropriate parking spaces for guests, and eliminate confusion, as has currently been experienced on site. So currently the Four Winds lands don't meet their parking requirements as outlined in the zoning bylaw. So an off-site parking agreement will be required as part of the site plan agreement, following this application to address the zoning bylaw requirements. And the new parking lot will serve to meet, the required parking spaces for the Four Winds barn. So as I kind of mentioned, a site plan agreement will be established, for the new severed parking lot to address various components such as signage, drainage, surfacing of the parking lot, and to tie this new property to the Four Winds lot. Next slide, please. There's just a couple photos of the subject property there. So we're looking towards the existing Four Winds barn. So that'll be the severed parking lot. The condition of the parking lot is proposed to stay the same for now, so gravel grade. If down the line they want to pave it, we'll revisit that through the site plan agreement and address that with appropriate drainage considerations. Next slide. And then a photo here looking at the retained buildings that front on Turnberry Street. So that's the rear portion there. Showing some of the existing parking towards the rear of those buildings. Next slide, please. So a couple comments on the proposal. So Huron staff have no concerns with the proposal, but did note the requirement for a site plan agreement. And Festival Hydro noted they also have no concerns, but want to note that they ensure adequate separation distance between hydro poles and any entrances coming off of the severed lands. And then a neighboring landowner, Mrs. Kenny, submitted comments of concern over the state of the commercial building being retained, as well as comments and concerns regarding how parking spaces on her lot will be maintained. So I spoke with the neighbor and noted that the designated parking can be addressed as part of the site plan agreement and discussed the owner's plans for the building moving forward. She also noted that there is a legal matter between herself and the owners of the subject lands over property damage, trespassing, and nuisance. It's the planning department's opinion that this is a separate legal matter that is being dealt with independently of these applications. I will note that as it stands right now, these comments will consider the application disputed, so it'll be forwarded to county council for decision. Next slide, please. So the applications are consistent with the PPS, conform with the Huron East and Huron County official plans, and comply with the Huron East zoning bylaw. So as a result, the applications are recommended for approval with the attached conditions. I'm here for any questions on that.
Any questions of council? Council McGrath?
Wasn't there a utility easement on that property somewhere? That property is on the other property. There's a utility easement down. Has that been addressed or?
I believe so, yes. It was addressed prior.
Yeah, I just wanted to utility easement. Okay,
Previously addressed.
yeah, okay.
Councillor Sharkran?
So I'm just curious, why would the neighbors dispute this change?
I think partially due to neighbor conflict. This neighbor is now trying to do something with their property and some frustrations over the past.
Instead of looking at the benefits of doing it.
Councillor Stefan?
Yeah, and we did confirm what, like, we're happy that by getting involved, this is not gonna affect us in any way in the current legal matter.
Yeah, we've discussed it internally with the planning department, and I brought it up to Brett McRoberts and Jess as well, and we're
Thank you.
satisfied that it's
Councillor?
separate, two separate issues.
Councillor Deal?
My question is, regarding like future business, traffic and servicing. Like at some point, if those, street front buildings turn into actual businesses. What about, delivery, parking for, employees and the likes of that? You've taken everything away then, what?
Yeah, so the retained storefronts and commercial buildings do still have space for parking spaces on the retained lands. So just in behind, so right now there's tenants in some of those buildings, so there's adequate parking spaces for that. And enough for a few employees if that were to be
What
needed.
about servicing, like trucks coming into, the likes of that, if the parking lot's full?
Yeah, so we've also made sure that there's adequate space for a loading dock if that needs to be.
Okay,
I
and
can't control it. It happens at the same time as the event at the Four Winds Barn. But there is space.
And what about there was a letter saying that there's already parking issues because tenants can't get to their parking spots or get out of their parking spots, whatever it is. How is that gonna be policed in the future then?
So we're proposing that we can address it as best we can through the site plan agreement. So proposing potentially looking at some more clear signage, clearly indicating where guests for the Four Winds Barn are permitted to park and where they're not.
Is that not already in place?
There's no signage indicating that currently.
My concern's kind of along the same line as Councillor Deal. And maybe there's no way to, force the owner of Four Winds to pave it after the fact, but I've been to so many events there where people start a row and then people start another row, and either it's so tight, you can't even get more cars in to use up all the spaces. Or depending on where this person parks, everybody else just parks in the same spot, and you almost leave like a row and a half. And you're wasting space, like, at least if it was paved, they could put lines down. I know people don't always follow lines, but most people do.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if Ian wants to address that a little bit more.
I believe that once the severance is complete and our clients have been able to acquire the lands, that their intention is to pave the lot. So then it could be marked for what parking spaces would be, and to also show the flow of the easements for the access of the Termary Street buildings, as well as the two neighbors that also front on Termary.
The interest is some drainage concern, so just at that time, we'll address drainage all in when that's proposed.
Councillor Deal.
And that also falls back to, fire services. Getting into the back of those buildings. Like if that parking lot's full, where do they go? Right. Have you thought of that?
Well, it's been circulated to the fire department, so they didn't have any concerns about that it is, but as I said, until it's paved and there's really no clear marking of.
Sure, I mean, a lot of those issues would be things that we have to look at from a site plan control standpoint in terms of fire roads. Not only for the property in question, but any of the adjoining properties in terms of their access. I agree that, parking in terms of delineation of where the parking should be, so that there's always a free and clear lane of access. That needs to be addressed as part of site plan control as well.
Can I get a mover and a seconder for the report, please? Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Deputy Mayor, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East acknowledge the report of Huron County Planner Shay Stahl dated April 10th of 2024. There's no objection to consent application C11 of 2024 and C12 of 2024, provided the conditions are of both applications as outlined in the planning report are met. Final comments or questions? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to number 12, reports and recommendations of municipal officers. And the first one, CAO 2410, Brad Patton's SCBA selection and award. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, I'd like to begin this report with publicly thanking the Huron East Fire Department for getting us, or helping us get to this point. We've had a lot of meetings, been a bit of a difficult time, but super proud how they came together as one fire department at our last meeting. We were able to go through a number of good issues, and at the end, they spoke with one voice, supporting this document. And I do congratulate. I get it, they're very similar, but there are some differences out there, and they're just moving in this direction. Thank you, Huron East Fire Department. So the report that you have in front of you is to award the tender to AJ Stone for the MSA SCBA's at a cost of $616,770. I should also thank the two vendors that worked with us throughout this program. The process was somewhat difficult, and it took a lot of conversations back and forth with different vendors so that at the end of the day, we could compare apples to apples. So thank you, M&L Supply and AJ Stone for assisting us through this process. And at the so the committee was made up of 12 members from the Huron East Fire Department. We had senior officers, captains, training officers, and firefighters on the committee. After, again, going through some lengthy discussions, it was chosen that the MSA was the better supply governments. Yes, we would also like to use any of the surplus that is from this SCBA tender to shift it over to the SCBA compressor system. They're similar units. And just boost up that fund a bit while we go through this, our next process of looking for a vendor and getting the adequate compressor put in the C4 station.
Any questions of council? Councillor Fisher?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Patton, thank you very, very much for all you've been doing for us. It's done a lot of work. Thank you. My question would be timeline for the implementation of these new devices and the ones that they are replacing. Are they scrap, or do they have a resale value or any value at all to anybody else?
Sure. So council awards this tender, approves of it. It's about a 6 to 8 week delivery. It'll probably be another 2 to 3 weeks after that, having the supplier come in, do all the training, provide the necessary training materials. They're gonna give us videos, training forms and everything for our staff to use. So you're probably 10, 12 weeks before they're in service. The new SCBA.
So August-ish.
Yes.
Okay. And then what, again, Mr. Patton, the tanks that they're using now.
Right. Unfortunately, being at sort of the tail end of the province, it's already gone through all this. The market is somewhat flooded with low pressure, we call them SCBA's. I have a number of irons in the fire looking for people that maybe are interested in these. If not, then I would make a suggestion to council that they be given to Firefighters Without Borders, which is a large international organization and with branches here in Ontario. And everything then would be shipped over to a third world country where they have virtually nothing.
That being said, Mr. Patton, is there First Nations or anyone like that in Canada that?
Problem that you have there is these do not meet current regulations,
Okay,
so there's liability issues.
yeah, thank you very much.
Councilor McGrath.
So 15-year mortgage included, that's what you're saying here, okay?
Yeah.
And the training is included in the price as well?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
It is a phenomenal warranty. It is truly bumper to bumper. Any rips, tears, anything happens to them.
Councilor Deal.
It says here in your report that the, like buggy breathers aren't compatible with these units?
No, with these units, they are.
They are.
You've decided, so every firefighter will have, call it like a RIT hose, a rapid intervention hose. So they'd be able to go to any down firefighter and quickly plug in their pack and the other person's pack and, give them the necessary air.
Thank you.
The only question I had when I was reading through it, and maybe it was in there, but, when I was talking about batteries,
Yes,
some of them use batteries?
they all use batteries. Everything in this world is
And
electronic.
what's the battery for?
There is, different types of alarm. There is a no movement alarm in the SCBA. So if a firefighter is not moving for a period of time, an alarm will sound with a particular noise. There are low warning, alarms for your air supply. There are a number of heads up display that will tell you where your cylinder is and how much air you have remaining and so on and so forth. So there's also, data time stamping, which is a requirement now in SCBA's, that, if at any time there was a problem, you can pull out the little chip and it will tell you exactly how fast that air went to the pack. And so there's lots of electrical, things working in the new SCBA.
So my only other concern is that, is there some sort of display that tells them how good the batteries are? Because, on my remote at home, I don't know until I can't get the darn thing to work that the battery's dead.
Yeah. One of the reasons why we went, with the MSA versus, the Scott, Scott uses an off-the-shelf, AAA battery, 6 of them per pack. Over the 15-year period, there's about $15,000 of cost with those batteries as well as landfill issues. The MSA are completely rechargeable. They're guaranteed for the life of the pack, so it's not like you gotta throw them out or anything, so.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Brad. Brad, is the heat camera, is it integrated into this mask as well, or heads up display?
They can be, but we've chosen a fairly basic pack.
Okay.
And along with that, we're in good company with this pack. Last week, the US Air Force, after 4 years of evaluating every pack on the market, chose the MSA G1, very similar, if not identical to what Huron East is getting. And they put in an order for 14,000 of them. I tried to jump in on that tender.
Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councilor Deal, Councilor Fisher, that the council of the municipality of Huron East accept the recommendation of the Huron East Fire Service and the Fire Service Advisor, Brad Patton, and award the tender for the self-contained breathing apparatus SCBA to AJ Stone in the amount of $616,770 plus HST. Any final comments or questions? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Brad.
Thank you very much.
We need a mover and a seconder for the final, budget consideration to be assessed or associated by bylaw. That's your deal. Someone else got to pay the, oh, Deputy Mayor, thank you. That the council of the municipality of Huron East approve the 2024 budget and consider the associated bylaw. All those in favor? I need the hands again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Motion carries 8. People passed it. For Councilor Fisher's
Thank you, you beat me this time, young fella.
At this time, I should go back because there was a couple things that, we had asked about and I think we could pop those in at this point. One was a request for a report on potential options for our honorariums for the rest of this term. If somebody still had any concerns about that, Councillor Chartrand?
I would include in that report so that we can compare apples to apples as to what are the other municipalities around us getting paid for their honorariums.
Okay, so like a comparison between,
The other municipalities.
and I'm gonna ask this, that it be compared as an overall. Because some municipalities pay really high honorariums and then pay almost nothing per meeting. Others pay really low
That'll
honorariums,
come out
pay
in the
really
report.
high, yeah.
That'll come out in the report.
So we're looking for a total comparison. Councillor Morris?
Did we not do this when we did the, council composition review, like last year?
I thought we did.
Was Payne not involved in that process?
I actually thought it was.
Yes, I can confirm it was part of that review process that group did provide. At that time, they felt the pay was equitable and fair compared to our area municipalities. So they made no motion to change the honorary. As they were.
How about we go with this, that we, ask staff just to bring that report back since it's already generated and, also give us the figure of what just the council cost would be rather than all of those other groups included, so we actually know what the cost of council is increasing the budget year after year. Is that reasonable? Council can still make whatever decision they want after the fact, but that gives us a starting point.
The other thing too, if you recall, when we hired that company to do the market share, you had brought the discussion up about they didn't do a market share evaluation on council. So we gave, I don't know what, 6%, 8% raise to staff as a result of that market share. But we didn't change anything for us. We just kept it the way it was.
I may be.
We just got the cost of living, is what,
That's correct.
right?
Oh, okay.
We only got the 2 point or whatever it was for cost of living. 3 point, whatever it was.
Okay.
Just point out that council honorariums and pay is a very public process and it's
Right.
review of your remuneration bylaw.
Yeah.
So it would always be separate from an employee review of wages, so it's a separate. I don't know the right word I'm looking for, but it's part of your remuneration bylaw review. Those are required to be done with every term of council, so it would have to be done. I believe, if you were to change it, it's more in effect for the next term.
Next
So
council,
it's-
yeah.
if you want to look at this one, you need a specific review of this term remaining. You will be reviewing next term of council's remuneration regardless this year. That bylaw is already on my radar to review. It's been updated via a policy and hasn't had an in-depth review, I think, in a while. So one of my radar goals is to have that thorough review of that bylaw. But if you were looking to change this term, then you do need a special review and a motion to change the rest of this term. Whereas normally it would be in effect for the next term of council.
I'm gonna jump in before I go to the deputy mayor here. Whether we have a bylaw that states one thing or another, I can state that whether it was the previous term or the term before that, council made a decision, and my understanding was staff always followed it, that we kind of got tired of the last year of our term. There was a big raise. And it covered, yes, the next term of council. And it was always discussed that you do it in the last term so that when the new councilors come in, they don't have to start arguing for what their amount should be. And that all made sense. But because we didn't like the fact that all of a sudden at one point you were getting $150 or a $200 raise, because that didn't look good either, we said that we wanted to follow whatever the guidelines were for staff. If staff got a 3% raise, we got a 3% raise. And my understanding is that we were constantly following that. I don't know what's in the bylaw or whether we ever changed the bylaw. But I do believe that all of council is under the understanding that if we were only going to receive whatever we gave staff as a raise.
The current states that you would receive the current, the cost of living increase that staff receives every year is what council would also be receiving. So it's separate from a pay equity review process.
I think that might have been a little bit short-sighted, but we don't need to adjust that part tonight, but we should put the motion forward asking for the information. And I will get to the deputy mayor before we finalize anything here. So we would like to see whatever the report was that was received a year ago, doing comparisons. And also, if we could just ask the treasurer just to break out from that council page, just what those expected increases are expected for the council and not all those other. That information, and deputy mayor, you had something you might want to add.
But we could just make a motion to freeze as well for the rest of the term.
I don't have any problem with if council wants to make that decision tonight. I always think it's good to look at the information.
For sure.
Reduce.
I'm just saying, but we still do that.
Absolutely, we can. So go ahead.
Sorry, and just as a follow-up, then I'd like to bug Treasurer Stacy then as well, if she could start her green fund that we've talked about. Remember we were gonna,
10% of mileage goes to green.
yeah.
I thought that was going to start this term of council.
I know, I think I talked to you in the first term, but the first year, but you were kind of busy at the time and I knew you'd get around to it. But
Go
just
back and get my notes. I'm sure.
see if we could maybe investigate that.
Yeah, it was talked about, but I don't think council ever agreed to do something, but it was talked about. Yes.
That was passed when I was deputy mayor, Mr. Mayor. Councilor McCollum brought it forward.
I believe it was a volunteer basis for whichever
Yes, for
councilors
sure.
wish to provide half their mileage to a green vibrancy fund.
That's all.
I'm not sure of the status of who's been opt in for that at that point, so I think that's the.
If we could just revisit it, that's all, yeah.
Can I ask what the motion is that we are trying to vote on here?
From what I have it is that we're directing staff for that comparison report that the council review committee had done last year. And also a breakout of the exact expenses that council receives as honorariums.
Moved by Councillor Sharkman? Yep. Okay, and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Any final questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. The second item that we were talking about was how do we want to word the motion to look at the whole idea of what we're doing with the service groups, or what information do we need before we can do something different? I realize that some of us would like to see something as a line item, but we need to, as it was expressed, figure out what we're actually doing for everybody and how do we make it equitable. What should the motion be asking staff to bring back?
Well,
Right.
I think the majority of that topic was the two pools. We really didn't get into the baseball diamonds or whatever. It was just pool on pool, budget wise. Whether that should be a line item or not for the Seaforth Lions pool should the Lions pool be part of the Seaforth Arena's budget, like the Brussels pool is part of the Brussels budget? Ran by the Lions, ran by the Optimists or whatever.
Okay, so would the request be to have staff? I'm not even sure how to word this.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure how to break it out, and I don't know who can come up with those final figures, because I take it we'd have to go to the Lions and find out what they say their overall expenses.
Yeah, they submit that to Stacy every year,
Okay,
itemized everything.
go ahead, Larry.
Yes.
I think to get a comparison, because you would want to know how many taxpayers' dollars goes into the Brussels pool. That's sort of what you're asking for, right? So as you can compare it to what should be going in Seaforth. So if 50% of my tax dollars is going to support the Brussels pool, or whatever their budget is, that is, not 50% of it, then I think what Ray's saying is we should treat the Lions pool the same way, fairly that way. Because other than they get a grant of so much, but it's way more than that, it's. Not that we should be spending any more money we haven't got, but however you wanna compare apples to apples, it's. You know,
Okay, so go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could this not be, part of, like, we're supposed to spend 60% of our parkland or something like that annually, could that not be an avenue that might be, examined?
It certainly is, but I would say before we decide where the money's coming from, we should try and figure out what it is we want to do. Because at the moment, we don't know exactly how we're dividing it up between the two pools at this point, because we do both of them different. I don't have a problem with what you're suggesting, other than the fact that we need to first figure out where we're coming from. Did I see your hand, Brad?
I just want to say parkland has to go to capital only. It can't be used for an operating cost.
Okay.
Thank you.
So like right now, only last year anyways, only $15,500 of tax money from your East residents went to the Seaport pool. How much was to the Brussels pool? We don't know.
Okay, so, would the motion be that we'd like staff to bring back a report of what is the tax dollars that are contributed to the Brussels pool operation and what tax dollars are contributed to the Seaport Lions pool operation? Is it that simple?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a mover. Do I, second by Councilor McGrath?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for council's, information, the Lions Park and Pool has, 3 revenue streams: renting the pavilion, renting the Ball Diamond, and pool activity. Each year we apply to the government for, wage subsidies. 2 years ago, we got 4,000, I think. 3 years ago, we got 12,000. Last year, we got 0. And that's even the 4,000. It was touch and go whether we could pay our bills, 2 years ago. We fundraise close to $20,000, with 3 or 4 events we have, and that doesn't, some years doesn't come anywhere near to covering our costs at the pool. So the 15,000 that we got last year was greatly appreciated, but when we had to increase our wages by 10 or more percent, I think it's on there, Ray,
If you want the total, so like last year, the income raised was 91, almost 92,000. But the expenses were 96, so there were $4,600 in the hole, and that's with the 15,500 that the municipality gave them.
I understand that we'd like to get to the bottom of this. I'm glad I'm not sitting in Stacy's seat, because we're not going to be comparing apples to apples. That's all there is to it. There's 2 completely different operations. And I'm gonna ask that council give staff more than just till the next council meeting to try and figure out
for sure
the information that should come back on this report. Because, the simple answer would be, how much do we give each group? That's pretty straightforward. But what all is provided by that group gets a lot more complicated based on what Councilor Fisher was just explaining. Councilor Deal?
That's thank you. I was just gonna say that because we have to take into account that they keep their revenues. Whereas Brussels is thrown back in, like it doesn't go, like the Lions Club is keeping the revenues they make off of the different areas, the Ball Diamond and stuff, whereas the Brussels pool, they don't actually keep that revenue. It goes back into the Huron East more so.
Which is really an interesting point, because, yes, we pay for a lot more of the operations, but it's the Lions that actually subsidize to get more people to use the pool, and we collect all the money that from those subsidies.
Whereas they keep theirs.
Right.
When you say we keep the money at the Lions, the money that they bring in revenue all goes out in expenses. They pay their bills and their wages and their hydro and their insurance.
Yeah.
So yeah, they keep the money. They don't have a nest egg. they're always in the hole. They never bring enough revenue in to pay their bills. Even with fundraising and all the stuff that they do and they rent out, it's just a no-win situation.
Right. And unfortunately, most recreation centers are that way.
Right.
Counselor Steffer?
Yeah, and if we're gonna do that, we should probably do a review of what, I know we're doing work in the Brussels pool and what the work needs to be done, because the municipality about 12 kilometers to the west of us that closed the pool because it costs too much to run. Because it got outside of cost versus benefit. So if we are gonna do all this, what it costs, what state of repair are we getting into? What is the total going to be? Because it's gonna make a big difference. All of a sudden, the Seaforth Lions come up with a $250,000 repair bill.
Okay, so.
There is a big leak.
In fairness, I'm gonna say it's two separate issues. I understand the point that you're getting at, but it's two separate issues, as the deputy mayor has pointed out, that they've always been willing to help even with capital projects in the past, and we haven't approached them yet, and it was going to be at least another year down the road probably before anything even happened. So nothing was gonna happen in the season coming.
Correct.
Yeah, so let's at least figure out where we've got for a starting point to how much money we give out. But yes, all of that can be taken into consideration before we go to the next step. Absolutely.
I guess all I'm saying is I don't think anything can be just rushed in as a quick A and B. There's a lot more to it. We
No,
have,
I mean,
put it on next year's budget and, vote whether we're putting it as a line item for both pools or neither pool.
I don't remember what all we said. Yes.
Directing staff to report on the tax dollars that are contributed to both of the pool operations.
Okay, so that's our starting point.
Mhm.
And then we can start to delve into other things.
This doesn't have to be done right away. This can take a deep dive. We're not gonna make any changes till next year, so next budget.
No, we just passed the budget, so we're starting on budget tomorrow.
That's right.
I have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor of the report? And motion carries. Thank you. Okay, get back onto our agenda, and this would be, paving Holiday Street in Brussels. It's just received for information. Gary's report.
Yeah, so a delegation came to last council meeting, I believe he's present tonight on Holiday Street. So what we did was we took, I don't know if we can pull the report up, it's got a picture of Holiday Street there, for interesting. We took a little history on Holiday Street. As far as back we could go was 1955 with the county, because the county had a fire back then and their records were destroyed. So in saying that, we noted that in 1990, the services went in, no doubt, when the second house was actually built there. But back in its day, when it was a Holiday Street, it was one house and it joined on to County Road 16. In saying that, the staff then took an assessment of all types of roads with similar construction within the municipality. So the roads that are situated in urban and semi-urban areas that are gravelled are itemized in the list that's down below. And basically what we did was we established a priority system, potentially what projects and what order that they would be paved if they were classified by the length, the amount of entrances, whether they had water, sewer, or the risk for capital or rank for and then we ranked them for capital improvement. So as you can see the rankings on the side, that we have a number of streets within the municipality of different lengths that Holiday Street may not rank as number one. And it could be open to a little bit more interpretation on there because we have a couple of streets in Egmontville there. And we understand Egmontville would be maybe pulled out of the picture a little bit because of its situation with sanitary sewers. In saying that, the practice for road maintenance and the cost to upgrade a gravel road to a paved road can vary depending on various factors: location, terrain, volume, base, and the type of design you actually want to apply to it. We all know from our construction practices within the urban, semi-urban zones that a meter of road construction is not you know, $500. It's like between anywhere $1,500 to $3,000, depending on all those type of factors that go into it. So the municipality would need to conduct a detailed engineered study, cost assessments before embarking on any of the above road projects. However, due to the financial limitations and the presence of other pressing needs outlined in the municipality's asset management plan, which was touched on here for many and pretty well everything we've done tonight, you would have to rejig the entire asset management plan to try and start to incorporate these projects and categorize them and see what other projects would be pushed out or come to a risk factor of failure. And that's what an asset management plan does. So in saying all that, as a result, paving of Holiday Street this year has not been included in the 2024 budget. So not following the prescribed order of the projects based upon set specific criteria would result in the municipality not following its asset management plan. A deviation in our asset management plan could result in a negative position by the province when any of our grant applications are submitted. So I tried to take everything into consideration, including our budgets, including what we have within the municipality. It's hard for us to look at one specific road when we have other roads of the same, then all of a sudden you have people coming in to reduce speeds on roads all over the municipality at random. And that's maybe not a good analogy, but it happens. That's my report. Council.
Any questions of council? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to Brad, or to Barry, excuse me. Barry, so would you look at any other, and I'm not proposing it to be done, but would you look at tar and chip even for some of these roads that are within, say, village limits like this as an option?
It could be an option, but you still gotta go into the base to make sure it can withstand the tar and chip. Tar and chip goes up to about 5/8 of an inch thick. Once you start to lose it, you lose it. What we've done in the rural areas is we've built up sections of roads. We've experimented with tar and chip on it, and if the tar and chip is successful, then it's a candidate for an overlayment. But that's not something that just happens overnight either. You have to go into that road base and determine what the condition of it is too.
So you'd still have to do engineering on any one of them roads here that you talked about. Any one of them ones, you'd still want to do engineering on it before even tar and chipping, like as an option even.
When you move into the, and I want to say semi-urban atmosphere, you want long-term, you want road structures that are gonna give you anywhere from 30 to 50 years before you want to go back to visit them.
The report that you've got there, Barry, of course, the number one road on there is in Brussels. But then from 2 to 5 up until Holiday Street are all in Egmontville. Are those particular streets going to be ones that are going to wait for water and sewer?
I touched on that just a hair. Those ones could be rejigged. The chart was based on the length of road, probably mainly the length, because the longer the road, the more it's going to cost. So I did touch on the streets in Egmontville that when sanitary sewer does come through, you might pull those out of this little chart, but we went out and we looked at them all.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, to Barry again. Barry, when you did look at these roads, were there anything that you could do to it to make it better for the time being until it fits in? Like, is there any extra grading that needs to be done or hasn't been done? Any more shouldering or more gravel or something like that?
That's a good point. We can always put a little more effort into it. We like to, once we set up the gravel layer, I believe we put on, I don't want to say tons of extra brine to set up, but once it sets up, you don't want to keep reworking it. You want that surface to get hard on. So we do that in the urban area, semi and urban areas already, but maybe we can pay a little more attention to it.
Go ahead, Councillor Clerk.
So in the delegation last time, there was a number of pictures that were in the report to us that showed substantial potholes. Have they been repaired since?
I believe so. Yes. I told the grader to go in there. He did actually go in there and see it. I'd have to ask if the grader was down there after your last delegation.
I didn't see it.
Well, I'll follow up on that.
Well, it's to.
Because I did bring it to the foreman's attention.
Well, that's like the deputy mayor's point of view is that if we're not gonna be paving the road, then they have to maintain it. And I was quite taken back at how deep those potholes were in the presentation the gentleman did, and I just wondered if it had been fixed or not.
Okay, this at the moment, unless I hear anything different, is a report for information of council. Are there any other questions for Public Works Director? Seeing none. Have a mover and seconder for accepting the report. Don't need it.
For information.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm gonna go to the director for 12.4 reconstruction of sports driving.
So we let the contract on April 9th for sports drive reconstruction from Flora Street to Turnberry Street. We held the report doesn't reflect that we did hold a public meeting at the Brussels Live or Brussels Arena. And actually, I thought we had a pretty good turnout. Councillor Morrison was there for the duration and I think we had people come in with concerns and we tried to address everything and it was a good turnout. So anyway, on April 9th, we opened the tenders. There was 5 tenders received. Myself, Councillor John Steffler, Manager for Operations Sean Bromley, and Operation Coordinator Megan McCollum, and the PM Ross Dennis Elliott. The 5 tenders, Curtis Smith Excavation was the lowest with $1.22 million. And I'll just keep moving on because it's a fairly straightforward report. PM Ross has attached their report qualifying Mr. Smith as or Curtis Smith excavating as a experienced contractor in the area. We've had him many times, so I think councilor even knows of. So it's recommended that his tender be accepted at $1,220,000 or $1,220,400, including HST for the reconstruction of Sports Drive in Turnberry Street, Flora Street in Brussels.
Can I get a mover and a second? Moved by Councillor Newell, second by Councillor Morrison. Any final questions of council? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mills, please. I didn't hear sanitary sewers mentioned in the report I listened to. Are we replacing them as well?
No, we are not. We did a camera work of the sanitary sewer. They were analyzed and they'll do the duration. There's analyzed and recommended that they'll do the duration of the next street.
Which is how many decades?
It's gonna be a long time.
They're good for 40 or 50 years.
I think our asset management plan is 40 years.
Thank you.
Councillor Morrison.
For you to the Public Works Manager, how long estimated is the project from start to finish? Is this an 8-month project, a 3-month project?
Well, it'll be a 6-month project minimum. The contractor, I think, will be starting right after motion is finalized tonight, like not tonight, but he wants to start right away.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have grants. So there was a list provided by staff.
Councilor Morrison and I have to leave the room, or can we just glare at the?
You don't have to leave the room and close, you're just not allowed to participate in the discussion. But
Right.
It's your preference at the end of the day.
Thank you.
So.
There we go. Just can't vote.
That's correct.
Well, you gotta leave.
That's good. I would have got it wrong because I think you always had.
Because it's an open meeting, it's
Oh,
No difference if they just went and sat in the audience, it's just they can't participate or vote.
okay. There is a list, staff recommendations, was part of the chart. Do we have any comments or questions about anything the staff would like to see different in council chart?
My only concern, as we talked earlier, is, staff is recommending to reduce the Lions Club to, 12.5 from its 15.5 last year. 15, whatever it was.
We can note that, I missed on my report that the Seaboard Ag Society asked for an additional 1,000, so that's in the recommendation as well, and then, the St. Columbus Soccer had asked for replacement of their, net standards with the like. So I recommended maybe paying for 50% of those, just to give them something since they put a formal request in, but it's up to council where you want those funds to go. So if you want to add more funds to the Lions Club and take it away from somewhere else, I just need direction.
Counselor or Brett?
I just wanted to comment, I mean, I don't want, no disrespect to Councilor Chartrand in terms of comment. Staff are only just trying to follow your policy, right, in terms of what the contribution share should be based on. You guys have said that 50% of capital cost is what we contribute, so I think that's what we were trying to apply when we were making recommendations, staff. Or making recommendations. And the only reason we're making that recommendation is because you had more grants than what you've got grant money for, even though we increased it by 5,000 this year.
So the St. Columbus soccer fields, they didn't fundraise at all for any of that money?
They do fundraise and they do, I do have their finances as well, and they do a lot of work.
So
They're looking
where,
for more municipal support.
so where you added money on, you took it away from the Lions, basically. The extra 1,000 for the Ag Society.
Yeah, and again, if you want to move that, that's up to you. If you want to take it away from St. Columbus and take it away from the Ag Society and move it back to the Lions or move it to the Lions.
So another question is, so the Ag Society in Seaforth always got $1,000, and this year we're giving them 2,000, but yet the Brussels Ag Fall Fair is 1,000.
Yeah.
What, like,
Again, because the Seaboard Ag Fair requested it. If you don't wish to give it to them, that's up to you. Up to council.
Counselor Dalton?
Do they have to give a reason like the Ag Society? Is there something that they're thinking?
just Fall Fair.
Or
It is the fall fair, it was for the
So
fall
they
fair for
just
prizes and things like that.
jump on another 1,000?
Yeah.
You didn't have to get any reports or anything on that?
Huh?
Like you used to have reporting or, well, we did for some of them where they had to.
I have their information in there.
Right, so you do
They
have
just have
that.
to, for your policy,
So they
so
just
the
ask.
request and the information,
Yeah.
except for some of these, we don't ask for requests because they're more internal, but
Yeah. Okay, so it was just a simple ask.
yeah.
Counselor Steffer?
Do we as council have the ability to go over the 25?
If you do, then you have to fund that overage from the council budget.
We've already approved the budget.
Hmm?
We've already approved the budget.
That's right, but if you go over the 25, which is what's in the budget, then you have to reduce something else within the council budget in order to cover the overage.
So maybe I'm just missing something. Wouldn't this have been better before we approved the budget? No, I'm just, then we wouldn't have to reopen and redo.
You don't have to reopen and redo, because the
No.
amounts are not changing, no. It's just that you have to find a savings.
And then I think we really need to follow through on what we were talking about, because we're only putting 25,000 and half of it's going to one entity. We talked about that last year, right? That was part of the reason we wanted it out of the granting piece of it. I honestly think
There was
we need,
investigation and there was some work on it, but there's still a lot of follow-up and work that needs to be done in order to come up with the other agreements in order to move forward. But that's, so it's not like it was something that was forgotten, it was still taken into account, it just didn't happen.
Councilor Deal.
I've got a couple of questions. First off, the St. Columban soccer, like, is that like just this year? Or are they expecting,
He put a formal request in for that, he would like reimbursement for his purchase of his nets.
for what, sorry?
His nets, his, the standards, they are 4 net standards. Purchase of 4 soccer goalposts, he wanted 4,581. I went with sort of the 50% rule.
And the other question, and you may not know this,
Right.
like the VA societies, have other grants that they get from the province and whatnot. Did you know, you wouldn't happen to know what those are? Because they get subsidized through the province too, so.
And so maybe that's a consideration with your decision.
Councilor Chartrand.
One of my recommendations would be to put back the Seaforth Ag Fall Fair back to the $1,000. Instead of 2, and then it matches the Brussels Fall Fair and add that $1,000 back to the Seaforth Lions. Is my, one of my recommendations.
I just want to comment, Councilor Steffler, I understand the point that you're making. Maybe we should do this before we pass the overall budget, but I guarantee you, if we had set the limit at 50, you'd spend all 50.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
So we need to set a limit and then figure out how we want to juggle it around. So I have a proposed direction by Councilor Steffler. Is there a seconder for that as a motion? Or sorry, Councilor Chartrand. Is there a seconder for that as a motion? Councilor Deal seconds it. Any final comments or questions on that? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Any other suggestions on changes?
I just had a question about the youth scholarship. We did that in 2,500. Was that a one-off thing? And what
I'm
was
sorry.
that? It's the bottom one. The youth scholarship.
Yeah, I think that was a one-time.
So that's not in the budget there.
No.
Okay. They didn't come back.
We'll get an extra $1,000. No one else take it.
What was it?
If there's no other suggestions at this point, then I need a motion to accept the recommendations as corrected. Moved by Councilor Deal. Second by Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Motion carries. Staff have direction.
Thank you.
Correspondence.
The first one is for conduct tag day fundraising. They put this request in every year. They're looking just for a routine of acceptance from council to continue with that fundraising.
Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Morrison, second by Councilor Fisher, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East has no objection to the request from the Royal Canadian Air Cadet Squadron for Tag Day fundraising on May 3rd to 5th of 2024. All those in favor? Carried. Oh yeah, these correspondence. The Huron residents, the concerns for the ATV trail proposal. Anybody want to comment on that? Certainly, Councilor Deal, go ahead.
Yes, I had a few members, or a few residents contact me regarding this. And I'm not sure what direction North Perth is taking on it. But they're quite upset. They already have to deal with ATVs illegally on this. They've put up posts to stop them, and the next day they'll be someone's taken a chainsaw to them and removed them. There's a lot of seniors in the area, they use the trail, well, it was on the video that Carolyn had done, that they use this trail for walking. I'm not sure what the, how it was put together with North Perth. Like, do they need our permission to designate this as ATVs? Or like how it was set up for the use of our section of the property? But they're not terribly happy with it, that's for sure. I'm not sure whether councillor or deputy mayor has had any.
Yeah, certainly had the same concerns about it, so.
Go ahead, yeah.
So you'll see my name is also on that letter. That's in my role as a facility manager at North Perth. So there was a presentation from an ATV, North Perth ATV club that was looking at, gaining access to the trails in North Perth. The trail that goes from Atwood to Enfrin is not 100% North Perth trail. There's 452 meters that belong to Huron East. So my understanding is the residents here are reaching out to Huron East Council because of something else that's happening in North Perth. So that's what I can tell you from our end, so. Or sorry, my end.
To Mr. Councilor Newell, is North Perth gonna okay this ATV usage?
There has been no report made to council yet at this point. So we're just collecting information from concerned residents, research on Ontario Federation of ATVs. So there's a bunch of research being done to produce a report. But at this point, council's not made a decision one way or the other. It has been put before council.
Yeah, I would move that we deny ATV access to the trail.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to let council know we have been reached by the ATV group as well, and they have been directed to come to council as a delegation if they so wish to, so that this can be a discussion for that portion of the trail with your next council as well. So does that piece of information.
And if they want to come as a delegation, that's fine. I personally don't see it being a good viable thing. For the simple reason, first of all, if I was using it as a walking trail, I'm sorry, but there would probably be a number of ATV drivers that would be respectful. But there are always that small percentage that ruin it for everybody, where when they go by, either people walking or someone on a horse, they think it's just funny to rev out at that point and see what happens. And I know a lot of people that own ATVs and do trails with them. And the best thing they love is when there's a mud hole or something else, and as deep as you can make the ruts and everything else, that's just part of the excitement of it. And I'm sorry, but I think the proper thing for ATVs would be to have trails just like the province does for snowmobiles. Buy a license, have them maintain, and let them do what they want to do on those trails. We won't walk on your trail. Don't ride your ATV on our walking trails. That's my personal opinion. It's just not a good mix between the walking public and motorized vehicles. Councillor Deal.
I totally agree with you. Is there any ATV trails in here in East?
I cannot answer that. Councillor
And
Wilby has a.
Yes, at CHIP, we have an ATV map. And I'm not sure where they are, but they're not supposed to be on walking trails. There are designated and MTO has the maps and they're available on YouTube.
Oh.
Because MTO said at our last meeting, everything's on video or YouTube now because they're limited to what they can put out in print. But yes, there are places available. I'm not sure where they are. Definitely not on the G2G.
right,
They're not supposed to be on walking trail.
my other question was, are they allowed on the road in here? or how much usage are they allowed on?
We do have an ATV off-road vehicle bylaw. I can't tell you the specifics of where
License
they
and
are.
insurance.
There's license insurance on the regular side of the road. Offhand, I'd have to look at the forward bylaw again, but
Thank you.
we do have parameters and restrictions. I just can't remember offhand exactly what they are.
Your hand up is to answer the question?
No, I just got.
Oh, no, sorry, I was going to Gloria just to see if that's.
I have something at home that I can bring in.
Okay,
So I can give it to Jessica and to see what, it's put out by MTO as well. So I will bring that into you as soon as possible. Tomorrow night, I guess I'm here, so.
it'd be great if the province would take over the responsibility of where you can and can't. Because I don't know if it's that way anymore, but 83, which was a county road, but because it was allowed by Blue Water and not allowed by South Huron, people could drive up one side, but they couldn't get home. Like it just didn't make any sense for a long time. I will get to everybody. Councilor McGrath.
I think you want to be consistent, you just deny it because it is the same as a G2G trail, like, of course, it's just a walking trail. Walking and bicycles, all you're allowed. And, but there's all kinds of ATVs running around Egmontville and police aren't stopping them or doing anything. They're wearing their helmets, they got license plates on the machines and sure. I mean, they could, I guess, stop, but there's, no, they're allowed on the roads.
Rain and deputy.
I agree 100%, and if North Huron is looking for feedback, then I think we should formulate a letter giving them our opinion that we don't think they should be allowed there for walking and biking only.
Which isn't a bad idea of how to address it. Like, if they haven't come to us as of yet, and they haven't addressed it as of yet, we could just let them know that we do not feel that it's appropriate to have both motorized vehicles on we don't feel it's appropriate to have motorized vehicles on.
Yeah.
And that's maybe an easy way to head it up, Deputy Mayor.
Let's bring it to Jeff. Jeff, so there's no ATV allowed now on your trail?
That's correct. There's not, ATV use is not there. They're looking to have ATV use on the trails.
So is there signage? Do you have signage or not? Or is it just a?
The only motorized vehicles permitted on there are snowmobiles.
Okay.
Which is the same as, well, sorry, the snowmobiles are the only ones that are motorized vehicles that are to be on there. But I don't know specifically if the sign says no ATVs at every road crossing. I don't know if it does say that.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
If, council is comfortable with it, we could just preempt this and, moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Deal.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Joe.
If there's gonna be a vote, I just need to declare a conflict of interest and would abstain from the vote. That's fine. Just because of my professional relationship with.
No, not a problem.
Trails,
So the idea of the letter is just to inform the other council that Huron East is not interested in having walking trails shared with ATVs.
ATVs, yeah.
Okay.
E-bikes, scooters, et cetera, anything motorized, Mr. Mayor?
I would suggest that we're really gonna open up a can of worms, or if we start trying to pick and choose. If we've got motorized vehicles, we've got motorized vehicles. If we're saying no, then it's no.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I did have them over in a second already. Any final comments or questions? All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, under unfinished business, before I get to the deputy mayor's report, I wanted to bring up a concern I have. I actually brought this up to the CAO that I did not get my tax bill. I didn't get it for my house. My son didn't get it for his house, but it is maybe a little different situation because he just moved in, but I also didn't get it for my business. Now, I found out because we had a neighbor that told us, oh, tax bills are coming up. And that's what reminded us to make sure we got in here, found out the amount, made sure they were paid on time. So I've got nothing to benefit by this argument. But I was told last week there was a post by the municipality that some mailing addresses could have been an issue of why people didn't get their tax bill. So I went and looked at the utility bill I got and the tax bill that I came in and got reprinted, the addresses were identical. I'm sorry, but I've been getting them for 40-some years in Brucefield and I didn't get my business tax bill this year. I don't know where the problem happened, whether something didn't get sent out from the municipality or whether it was a screw up at the post office, but I've got a hard time telling ratepayers that if we screwed up or it was the post office that screwed up and they're the people we're relying on, that it's too bad you owe a penalty now on top of if you didn't get your tax bill and it didn't get paid on time. Now, I didn't realize it until I was reading through the bylaw that I'm supposed to sign for tonight that we're supposed to pass. I didn't realize we could actually get it as an email
Yes.
instead of a printed copy.
We would prefer that.
Okay, so
We can email all your bills to you.
which I think is a great thing to do, because then it's on us if we don't get it. But I am still concerned about ratepayers if in fact the post office returns them. I don't know if mine for my house got returned, but I got my utility bill and I checked it against the one that got reprinted for me and the address was identical on both. So if it got returned, then I'm gonna say the post office is getting lazy and that's not fair to the ratepayers to get charged a premium. And I think somehow we've got to look into
But why
this.
would
or
the
address
post
it.
office return it if your address is correct?
But apparently the post or the municipality got a bunch back saying that they were undeliverable.
Fire numbers on them,
Pardon me?
fire numbers.
Your PO box number was on it?
The address that is printed on my utility bill was identical to the one that was on my tax bill, letter for letter, number for number.
That don't make sense.
I agree. Do you know if mine came back, Stacy?
We can check that for you. We save them, we don't discard them, I'm pretty sure. Or the tax clerk has them.
I think it's important to look into it because, you know, if in fact the post office just didn't do their job and it was easier to bring it back because somebody was lazy, that's not fair to penalize our ratepayers after the fact. But not only do I think it'd be a great idea if we could get the message out that if there was a way to email them, and maybe everybody else knew that was out there. I didn't know that until I read the bylaw, that it was out there. And I'm gonna say, and I should have said this earlier, the last 3 pages of your presentation tonight, Brad and Stacy, where you talked about what your tax dollars do, what your tax dollars don't do, and that pie chart. Let's make sure that all the tax bills that go out in the fall have those 3 pages included. That is great information, and I put the pie chart on the top for the simple reason that people don't mind looking at pictures a lot better than reading text. So if they see the picture first, they might read the other 2 pages, because I think that was great information to have included there. Councilor Morrison.
On that same note, those same graphics, would make great social media posts for educating the residents.
Yeah. Good idea. So I don't know what to do at this point, but I think it would be, oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, so I guess, we gotta be careful a little bit. How many did we get back? And were they all from one post office? Like, what about Brussels, what about the?
I can't tell you that information, I don't have that,
What's that?
I can only follow up with the tax clerk to see what we have.
Right, if we got 500 back and they were all from C4, we obviously can isolate where the incident probably happened. If we got 500 back from multiple, we can probably look at us or, post office boxes, but we have had some administration challenges. We have had some billing time and discrepancies. Just make sure we know what we're asking before we start blaming the post office, or not blaming, that's not the right word, but inquiring, just make sure we know what happened at our end. To where we go with, if we get them all back at Tuesday or the day they were all sent, then obviously the post office didn't have the right people on staff, but if there was only 6 that didn't get there and 2 happen to be yours, do we have a problem?
Yeah, I understand the point, but I'm assuming there was more than 6 because I brought the issue up a month ago, or almost a month ago, and the municipality put a post out that if you didn't be on time and the address was wrong, you're still responsible. And that may have been the comment from the post office when they brought them all back here, that we couldn't deliver them because of addresses. But I don't know how far.
Yeah, and I just, that's all I'm
staff had a
saying, just do
chance.
some research before we start doing the blanking.
Makes perfect sense. And I'm not saying that one person is bad over the other, but it did seem odd to me that both my addresses were the exact same. So if mine was included in that bundle that came back from the post office, there's something wrong.
Right, two different addresses too, your work address and your home address.
So, and that's why when I brought it up just a month ago, the deputy mayor was in a meeting with me with the CAO, and I asked him if he got his, because I thought maybe they just didn't send out the M's, but no, he had his, and he volunteered to give it to me if I needed one, but Councilor McGrath.
To your point, houses haven't moved, the address hasn't moved. If somebody moves into that house, there's a box office, box uptown, they get the same box number. So that's been on files for years.
Yeah.
Now, other than your new, and you might have a different name in that house, but other than a new house, it's gone up. You can get discrepancy there, but something's got to be checked into this.
I think Councilor Stepper is right. We should leave it with staff to look into, to see if there was, first of all, what kind of numbers are we talking about ended up coming back? And it'd be interesting if you used mine as an example. Did the one for my house and my business get returned? Because, yeah, those addresses haven't changed from my utility bill, which came to me. Councilor Deal.
Thank you. Ultimately, they all go through the Seaforth Post Office because that's where they're posted from.
Good point. Yeah. Okay, so we'll see if we can get a comment back. I will turn this over to the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our last county council meeting, we had Rick Hoostra there. He's the manager of the Huron View Farm. He was there to talk about cover crops and water management. As you all remember or would remember, that's the farm where they try different types of drainage. Talked about the yield for corn last year was about 200 bushel per acre, which was very good. He said one interesting fact they've noticed that there's actually more water comes off in fields versus the rainfall that falls on them. So right now they're partnered with the University of Guelph there to sort of check water quality, and this is one of the things they're going to look at. And just as a fun fact, County Councillor Jim Ginn spoke from here in Central Huron. He spoke and he pointed out was former warden and Huron East Deputy Mayor Joe Steffler that pushed to have that Huron View Farm turned into a research farm for all of Huron County. Now you can see cover crops in action, different types of drainage and benefits of, while maintaining good yields and good water quality. So I just wanted people to know that it was actually Joe Steffler that did that. Follow up, then we had Dave on there. We get a report for last year's notices of intent. That's tree harvest. There was 108 notices taken out of intent. This year we're going to harvest the forest at Rogers Forest, possibly a $40,000 income coming off of that. He also pointed out there's cases, I think there's 3 cases, but involves one family. Cases before the court right now involving a Huron County landowner, where these cases involve actually stripping some 20 acres of land, trees off. So that's before the courts right now. So he pointed out too, the average cover crop, forest cover in Huron County runs between 16 and 20% of all the Huron County. The county has 14 forests, and that adds up to about 1,600 acres all total. So I'll just continue on. On April the 5th, I attended the Huron County Federation of Agriculture Meet the Members Day. Ben Lobb and Lisa Thompson were both there to listen to various groups' concerns and how they might help. Many of the producers are looking for more processing plants, hooks for slaughter. Many thought the billions of dollars spent on battery production would have been better spent in agriculture and food production. The hot topic of the day was carbon tax.
Surprise, surprise.
My reports.
It's gonna be a hot topic for a while. Yeah. Councilor Stefan?
Yeah, just for the mayor and the deputy mayor, was there any correspondence or communication at the county level in regards to the out of the cold moving? Like changing location?
No, but the out of the cold technically will be defunct once the new facility is built in Goderich.
No, sorry, yeah, for clarity, the hotel that it was at, all the residents had to be moved to the Dunlop Hotel, like to another hotel, sorry for names, out onto the highway, so they all had, like, I was just wondering if there was some more information that was presented to council of the total transition between home A and moving the tenants and the residents to home B.
I do not recall that information ever coming to county council. Do you know when that happened?
6 weeks ago. Just, again, not firming, can confirm, like, just from what it is, and if you could just follow up, just to see, I know it's a moot point because our end period is coming or completing for this year, and who knows where next year goes, it is a 1 year too. But it would just get some feedback to how it was, you know, why it was positioned, but more importantly, was there an issue, was there something that we need to worry about?
Well, I was trying to think, last meeting that we had for the homeless through the county, I think that was back in March, and nothing was said then, so there wasn't about that.
So just follow up, and I could be getting bad information, let's be fair, I'm hearing it, and I'm pretty sure it happened, but I just want to confirm.
At this point, are there any other council member reports?
Well, that segue that Deputy Mayor had with the hooks and processing wasn't a drainage thing that I ended up at. It was about the abattoirs and the plight of them. They had a good turnout because they came from Grey Bruce, like there was a good turnout. And Lisa is concerned about the abattoir situation and the fact that we've lost a lot of them. There were some abattoir owners there, and it was interesting that 3 or 4 of them are third generation. Some in our, not too many in here in East, but we do have one. Their main concerns are skilled labor. No surprise there because a lot of the butchers are retirement age. And they would like to see the butcher trade become part of the trades, like we're talking trades, and they'd like to see that maybe included. The demographics have changed, and we all know that, the big families and, you know, the way people purchase. So that's something that they're facing, and they face a lot of regulations and inspections, and the inspectors can be hard some days to deal with. And finance, of course, but it was interesting. The abattoir owners were pretty passionate about what they do. And it's good to see that there's 3rd generation, very local, that are into the abattoir business. So it was very, it was good and, good turnout. Mayors from other areas.
It's been going on for more than a decade, the concerns about not having enough abattoirs.
I think they said 100 is all they are left.
And I'm gonna say that, I wasn't able to attend the meeting with Lisa and Ben, but it quite often gets brought up there also. And inspections were the start of the downfall.
Number 1.
Yes. Yeah, that's been said over and over again. You know, in fairness, I have a hard time arguing with the fact that I'd like to make sure that they're all safe, but not to the point that we drive people out of business with rules and regulations that.
Well, that was the comment of the, Lisa's, whoever was with her, and he said, he understands that, but he said, you have to have some pretty solid rules, because there's still the rule breakers, and that kind of then floats out and affects them.
I understand that, and, you know, in fairness, if you've got 3rd generation, and certainly, you know, we've got some, close by that seem to be very successful, so I guess I have a hard time arguing if the rules are too strict, because some of them seem to do very well.
And that's what he said, you know, they have to have rules, but I think the local ones that we all probably know of are doing pretty well.
Well, they're supported by the community. Councilor Stephen.
And just as an update, the first police services board for the county meeting is next week. So Inspector Union set that out today.
Thank you. Any other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars? Already segued into it. Committee report from Councillor Fisher, the United Way, Huron East Community Committee, written submission goes to verbal at the meeting.
Yeah, I just asked the secretary to send that, so my memory wasn't tested. That pretty much covered what we, were the major concerns. They're still looking for, members of the public to be on the committee. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right now, so there's 3 spots available. They plan to have most of the meetings in the daytime, so that takes away some of the demographic. But, if you know of any younger people who were available between 11 and 1, once a month, 9 months of the year, that would be great.
And these are just members of the general public that they want involved.
Yeah.
At this point. Right. Okay. Councillor Deal.
I'd just like to mention that we had, the Cranbrook Hall had, fish dinner put on by the Legion in the Brussels Legion crew on Saturday night, and we walked away with $5,954
Wow.
for a 2.5 hour run, so it was busy. The meal started at 4:30, our hydro come back on at 3:45. We almost had the coffee first.
So the fish were running good then?
Yeah, they were good. It was a good night. Thankfully, it wasn't Friday.
Yes. Are there any requests by members at this time? Any notices of motion? Any other announcements? Seeing none, we will go to bylaws, and I get a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Wilby, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 37 of 2024, a bylaw to authorize a lease agreement with the Vanastra Curling Club be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a $1 clause in there from years ago. Has that been resolved?
Yes, it has. It's still in there. It's just a Schedule A to that lease agreement.
Thank you.
All those in favor? And motion carries. Go over and seconder to the next bylaw. Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Deputy Mayor, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 38 of 2024, a bylaw to establish 2024 tax rates be given first, second, third, and final reading, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. And a move and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw. Moved by Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor Newell. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 39 of 2024, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be given first, second, third, and final reading, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries, and a mover and a seconder to adjourn. By Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Chartrand, with the time now being 8:47 p.m. The regular meeting now adjourned until May 7th of 2024 at 6 p.m.